Chapter 1327. Buying a house in the capital. The atmosphere in the capital was indeed different from other places. At night, the streets were still lively. Even on such an ordinary day, there was still a night market. However, according to Shao Qingyuan, the night market in the capital was opened within the specified range and time. It was not completely free. Yundong and the others rested at the inn for the night. The next morning, they set off to look for a house. Of course, it was Yundong and Shao Qingyuan who did it. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were sent by Shao Qingyuan to inquire about the Yin family. Shao Wen had followed Shao Qingyuan to the capital before and was quite familiar with it. After they left, Yundong and Xia Ling went to look for the broker. There were many brokers in the capital. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan had some understanding when he came to the capital last time. He knew which broker had a good reputation, so they went straight there. Unfortunately, houses in the capital were too scarce, and they were especially expensive. In particular, some large houses with 4 to 5 yards were not easy to buy at all. Even if they were available, they were in very remote places. Therefore, Yundong set his sights on the 3-yard houses. Such a size was perfect. It would not look empty or too crowded with a few more people. Yundong explained her request. The broker picked out 2 for her. Yundong followed him to look at the 2 houses. One was in Hutai Alley, which was relatively close to the downtown area. It was a little noisy, but it was very convenient to go anywhere. There was another one on Dongwu Street. This place was considered quiet, but the broker said honestly that there were several families in this area who had mistresses here. Speaking of benefits, most of the mistresses were from powerful and rich families. If she accidentally bumped into them later, she might even get to know some big shot. But Yundong and the others did not need such an opportunity. There were many mistresses, and there was also a lot of trouble. Therefore, Yundong finally chose the house on Hutai Alley. The house here was relatively old. Many of the older generation lived here. Occasionally, a few officials with low official positions will buy the house here. Yundong asked for the price, and the broker gave her the real price, 6,000 taels. Yundong's heart ached terribly. The housing prices in the capital were simply unbelievable. A house with 3 yards cost 6,000 taels. As for the 4-courtyard and 5-courtyard houses, they cost almost 10,000 taels. If there was something bigger, it would cost at least 20,000 to 30,000 taels. There were indeed many rich people in the capital. Yundong sighed and took out the silver with heartache. That person was also very fast. In the afternoon, he found the owner of the house to sign the deed with them and registered with the government. This house was hers. After coming out with the warm deed, Yundong looked up at the plaque above her head and said to Shao Qingyuan, "I have to change this plaque to Shao residence later. That will be much more pleasing to the eye. We'll find someone to replace it tomorrow." Shao Qingyuan looked at her, and the 2 of them laughed. "We still have to get someone to clean the house tomorrow. We also have to buy some things. When the time comes, we can move in directly. The greatest benefit is that this place is quite close to the shop Nieshuang bought. When the house is ready, we'll go to the shop to take a look." The 2 of them chatted as they returned to the inn. It was already very late. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were already waiting for them. After entering the room, the 4 of them ate something first before Shao Wen began to talk about the situation of the Yin family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1328. Second Master Yin. The Yin family is indeed in Heading Prefecture. Master Yin, who is in the capital now, is the second son of the Yin family. He's 35 years old and is in charge of the business in the capital. Shao Wen told him everything he had found out. This Master Yin was called Yin Yihai and had been in the capital for many years. The grandson of the Yin family that Shui Lan had saved was the son of the eldest master of the Yin family, the nephew of Yin Yihai. When Yundong heard this, she could not help but knock on the table. "This is interesting. First Master Yan's son has been saved, but he wants second Master Yin to pay. Will he agree? How's the relationship between the 2 branches of the Yin family?" Shao Wen chuckled. "Madam is right. On the surface, the 2 brothers of the Yin family are indeed loving brothers. However, I specially asked around and found that this second master, Yin, hasn't returned to heading prefecture for 2 years. However, his wife and children have gone back to visit the old man. Yundong looked at Shao Qingyuan. Do you think Yihai will willingly give by Muzi to the Chui family? Mostly not. So, we still have to start with the Yin family. Shao Qingyuan nodded. However, since old master Yin wrote a letter to Yin Yihai, even if it's for show, Yin Yihai won't openly disobey his father's orders. We still have to find out what he wants to do. Yundong nodded. In fact, she felt that the possibility of getting by Muzi from the Yin family was higher than getting it from the Chui family. After all, Chui Lan had a grudge against them. After talking about Yin Yihai, Yundong looked at Tong Shuitao. Where's Qin Wenzheng? Lord Qin isn't in the capital. She had gone out today to find out about Qin Wenzheng and Imperial Physician Song. Not in the capital? Tong Shuitao nodded. I heard that Mr. Qin went out to the capital to do something. I don't know when he'll be back. Mrs. Qin and Miss Qin are at home, but I heard that Miss Qin has been sick recently, so the Qin residence closed its doors and refused guests. Since that was the case, Yundong would not disturb them. Imperial Physician Song has been in the palace for the past 2 days. I don't know the exact situation. She couldn't find out what was going on in the palace. Yundong nodded to show that she understood. In any case, she had many things to do. It would not be too late to look for them after everything settled down. When Shao Wan and Tong Shuidao heard that they had already bought a house, they looked very excited. The next day, they happily ran to clean the house. However, the house was a 3-courtyard house. It was still a little big. Just the two of them were still too few. Yundong inquired around the house and found 3 women to help tidy it up. She and Shao Qingyuan walked around the streets, planning to buy some things. This was Yundong's first time in the capital. The streets in the capital were wider and more prosperous than in the Shuana prefecture. The main road in front of him could accommodate 4 carriages riding side by side. Yundong looked at the shops along the street and walked over. They needed to buy a lot of things and had little time, so they did not have much chance to shop. They basically went straight to their destination. Beds, tables, chairs, and other furniture were needed. There were also pots, pans, rice, oil, and salt that were needed in the kitchen. There were also quilts, pillowcases, brain threads, and so on. They could slowly add the others that they did need for the time being. Yundong bought everything she could and sent them to her house in Hitai Alley. Then, she went back with Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1329. Reminder unexpectedly. Just as the two of them were about to reach the entrance of the alley, they suddenly bumped into a familiar person. That person was also stunned for a moment when he saw them. Then he walked over. Dr. Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded at him, greeted him, and brushed past him, planning to leave. That person was about to leave, but he suddenly stopped and said, Imperial Physician Chui entered the palace to meet the Emperor as soon as he returned. This person was the Imperial Guard who had protected Imperial Physician Chui and his daughter on the ship. Now that Imperial Physician Chui had returned to the capital safely, his mission was completed. This person left after saying this. Yundong waited until his figure had completely disappeared before she asked, Are all the people in the capital so oblique? Couldn't he make it clearer? He clearly meant well, but if he met someone who wasn't quick-witted enough, they really wouldn't be able to figure it out. Shao Qingyuan led her into the alley. I don't have a relationship with him after all. We've only met once. It's already not bad that he reminded me of this. He told them that Imperial Physician Chui had gone to see the Emperor as soon as he returned to the capital. It was to report the vaccination in the heading prefecture. This was his duty as a subject. Although Shao Qingyuan did not have the status of an official imperial physician in the imperial hospital, he was in charge of the vaccination in the Shuana prefecture. He was shouldering the mission given by the emperor. When he returned to the capital, he should have entered the palace to meet the emperor immediately. Unexpectedly, he stayed outside for 2 days without doing anything. Imperial Physician Chui and Shao Qingyuan came back on the same boat. The emperor must have known that he had been in the capital for 2 days. If he delayed any longer, No matter how good the emperor's temper was, even if he knew that he did not know the rules of the imperial court and did not mind, others would be dissatisfied and report Shao Qingyuan. Are you going to the palace tomorrow? Gu Yundong asked. Shao Qingyuan nodded. I do plan to enter the palace tomorrow. With his status, it was not enough for him to meet the emperor directly. He had to report to the head of the imperial hospital, Song Dejiang, before Song Dejiang brought him there. He'll leave the house to you. We'll be back soon. Yeah. The two of them walked to the entrance as they spoke. Some of the things they had bought had already been transported over. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were helping with the transportation. When they saw Gu Yundong and Gu Yundong, Tong Shuitao immediately ran over. Miss, the room has been tidied up and the bed and cabinet have arrived. Come in and take a look. Gu Yundong followed her in and was the first to see some old furniture and miscellaneous items piled up in the courtyard. There are some things here that were going to be sold, and some are going to be thrown away. Unexpectedly, a woman who was helping to clean the house suddenly came forward. She went to Gu Yundong's side and asked with a smile, Madam Shao, you're back? Aunt, what's the matter? It's like this. Look at your bed, cabinet, and so on. You don't want the old ones anyway. Can I take them back? Gu Yundong was stunned, but Tong Shuitao frowned and said, I've already told you that those big items are for sale. Sai, look at what you're saying. Those things are all damaged. Otherwise, how could the previous owner bear to leave them behind? You just came to the capital and don't know the market in the capital. These things are not worth much money. As soon as the woman finished speaking, another woman behind her pulled her back. All right, stop talking. These things are worth. Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed by the woman from before. Shut up. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1330. Let Gu Yundong do something good then. The woman continued to look at Gu Yundong. She smiled and said respectfully, Madam Shao, you look like you're from a rich family. You don't care about this small sum of money. Why don't you do a good deed? Gu Yundong found it funny and raised her eyebrows slightly. Yesterday, after buying the house, I agreed to sell the bed and cabinet to the broker. Later, he will find a cart to take them away. So I can't give them to you. If you want them, you can have those things. She pointed to another pile of things to throw away. Actually, there were quite a few good things in that pile. For example, the damaged stools and chairs, as well as the cages and cabinets that had been bitten by rats. These were all ordinary wood things that could not be sold for much money. It was better to chop them up and burn them as firewood. However, if others took a fancy to it, they could naturally pull them away. Gu Yundong had some money now, so she would not mistreat herself if she could use good stuff. If she was still as poor as before, she would definitely move everything back home like a mouse. Unexpectedly, the auntie from before said with a look of disdain, These are all broken. They can't be used at all. Why should I bring them back? Gu Yundong smiled. Then forget it. She raised her voice and called Tong Shuitao over. I think the work is almost done. Let's settle the salary for the ants. The woman wanted to say something, but when she saw Shao Qingyuan, who seemed tall and cold, enter, she immediately stopped talking. However, she still looked at those things unwillingly and muttered something. Tong Shuitao quickly gave her money and sent her away. On the other hand, the woman who had stopped her earlier was at the back. After thinking about it, she hurriedly ran back and asked Gu Yundong in a low voice, Madam Shao, do you really not want those over there? Gu Yundong saw that she was a little embarrassed and then looked at her clothes, which were indeed a little more dilapidated than the other women's. She knew that her family was not very well off, so she nodded. I don't want them. If Aunt likes them, you can bring them back to repair them for the children to play with. The woman was even more embarrassed, but she still thanked Gu Yundong repeatedly. Then he'll take them back. Yes, they'll get Shuitao to help you move them. She's strong. The woman wanted to refuse, but Tong Shuitao had already run over quickly and pulled the woman to see something. When the woman was done, Gu Yundong had basically cleaned up everything and got rid of the things she could throw and burn. Later on, the broker found a few people to transport the large items away. Those things were not worth much, only 5 taels of silver in total. Gu Yundong took the money to the market next door to buy some chicken, duck, and fish. At night, they cooked a sumptuous dinner. Although there were only 4 of them, they still had to celebrate the housewarming. Gu Yundong was still not used to sleeping in her new home. She only fell asleep after a long time at night. The next day, she woke up late. When she got up, Shao Qingyuan was already not at home. He had left with Shao. Gu Yundong slowly got up and washed up before bringing Tong Shuitao out. They planned to go to the shop Nie Shuang bought today to take a look. Holding the address Nie Shuang had given her, Gu Yundong strolled towards the shop. However, halfway through, a carriage suddenly passed by her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1331. Chuilan goes to the Yin residence. Gu Yundong turned her head slightly and saw the person sitting in the carriage. Was this fate? Tong Shuitao also saw it and asked softly, "Miss, that was Miss Chui just now, right?" "Yes." Gu Yundong nodded. She looked in the direction where the carriage had disappeared and asked, "Where is it going?" Tong Shuitao thought for a moment and suddenly widened her eyes. She pointed in that direction and said, "It's the Yin residence, Mississippi." Yin residence? Gu Yundong thought of her and Shao Qingyuan's guess. According to Chui Lan, the Yin residence would send by Muzi directly to the Chui residence. However, Chui Lan had personally gone to the Yin residence. Could it be that, as they had guessed, Second Master Yin did not want to give by Muzi to them, so he did not send him over? After all, Imperial Physician Chui and the others had been back for 2 days. Gu Yundong immediately became excited and hurriedly said to Tong Shuitao, "Let's go to the Yin residence to take a look." "Miss, we can't enter." "Who said we're going in? Let's find a place nearby to sit and see if Chui Lan can get by Muzi." Tong Shuitao nodded repeatedly and immediately led Gu Yundong to the Yin residence. The Yin residence was located in a rather prosperous area in the capital. The Yin family was in the tea business and was a big family, so the house was built big and rich. Sure enough, Gu Yundong found a tea shop nearby. The shop was diagonally opposite the entrance of a Yin residence. She ordered 2 pots of tea and waited with Tong Shuitao while listening to gossip. Needless to say, there was a lot of gossip outside the Yin residence that was about the Yin family. Master Yin's youngest daughter rarely comes back after she gets married, right? She's just a concubine's daughter. Her life in the Yin family was difficult. Now that she's finally married to a good husband and is living a good life, why would she come back? I don't think so. Think about how this concubine's daughter married her husband back then. I heard that she didn't have a good life in her in-laws' family. Yes. I think I heard that the main wife's daughter of the Yin family took a fancy to her husband and was intercepted by this concubine's daughter. Therefore, this concubine's daughter was raised to be petty and ruthless. She specially did such shameless things. No way. That concubine's daughter of the Yin family is very timid. How dare she intercept her legitimate sister? The rumors were getting more and more unreliable. Someone asked the boss of the tea shop what happened. After all, he had opened shop in front of the Yin family for a long time. The boss did not seem to intend to answer at first. He did not want to offend the Yin family. However, when he heard that the rumors were getting more and more ridiculous, for some reason, he still said, "Second Miss Yin is pitiful enough. Don't ruin her reputation anymore. Have some respect." Gu Yundong could tell that this concubine's daughter had a hard time in the Yin family. As for how she married her current husband, there might be an inside story. Just as he was thinking, another carriage suddenly stopped outside the Yin residence. Someone alighted from the carriage and was helped into the side door by a maidservant. The tea shop immediately became lively. "Isn't that the second daughter of the Yin family?" Yes. It's the second daughter of the Yin family. Didn't everybody say that she hadn't returned to her mother's house for a long time? Why is she back today? Her mother is still in the Yin family. Haven't she never come back? I don't see her husband. Gu Yundong was sitting far away, so she could only see the side of the woman's face, which was delicate and pleasant-looking, but she looked a little weak. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1332. Something happened to the Yin residents. The customers in the shop began to discuss again. However, perhaps because of what the shop owner had said just now, the discussion about second Miss Yin slowly stopped, and they began to talk about other things in the Yin family. Yundong pricked up her ears and listened. She accepted some information, and was also speechless when she heard about the privacy of some servants. However, it was said that Yihai's wife was shrewish and a little greedy. As for Yihai, one of them often played the good cop, and the other played the bad cop. In the end, Yihai's reputation as a smooth, capable, and easy-to-talk-to businessman was created. Yundong smiled and shook her head. There were so many things to do in this rich family, and they seemed a little complicated. She listened with interest, but the door of the Yin residence had not been opened since second Miss Yin entered. It was not until noon that the side door suddenly opened and a servant from the Yin residence rushed out. Yundong narrowed her eyes and watched the servant run away in a panic. After an unknown period of time, the servant returned anxiously with another person. When Yundong saw that person, she suddenly stood up and craned her neck to look over. Imperial Physician Shui? That servant actually called Imperial Physician Shui over. Not only that, but that servant was also carrying Imperial Physician Cui's medicine box on his shoulder. Something happened to the Yin residence? Yundong scratched her ears and cheeks. She wanted to know what was going on inside, but she could not get in. What a headache. Not only her, but other guests also saw this scene and could not help but ask curiously, what happened to the Yin family? That's Imperial Physician Shui, right? Someone stood up. I'll ask around. Yundong looked at that person with a burning gaze, and that person quickly left. Yundong was still sitting there, waiting for them to come back. Unfortunately, it was as if this person was gone. After a long time, he did not appear. 2 hours later, the door of the Yin residence opened again, and two people came out. Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't this Imperial Physician Shui and Chuilan? They were sent out by the butler of the Yin residence. The butler's expression was very strange. Although he seemed respectful, there was a hint of anger. However, in the face of Imperial Physician Shui, he still looked considerate and cupped his hands to bid them farewell. Both father and daughter did not look too good. Chuilan's eyes were red. She gritted her teeth and was called by Imperial Physician Shui twice before getting into the carriage. Yundong tapped her fingers on the table and watched as their carriage went further and further away. Only then did the butler of the Yin residence snort coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, he strode back to the residence. This scene confused everyone. At this moment, the customer who had said that he was going to investigate returned with an excited smile on his face. As soon as he sat down, someone asked him, "How was it? What happened to the Yin residence? Why were you gone for so long?" That person held the tea bowl and drank a big bowl of water. Then he wiped his mouth and said, "Sai, do you think it's so easy to find out about the Yin residence? I have to find my brother first. My brother looks for his brother. His brother still has to find his lover, who looks for her sister who has a lover, and then... All right. Hurry up and tell us what happened." Someone interrupted him and urged him impatiently. Only then was that person satisfied. He chuckled and said, "You will never imagine how bold that girl from Imperial Physician Shui's family is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1333. This move is wonderful. How serious? That person said mysteriously. Miss Chui sent an invitation to the Yin residence to visit the eldest daughter of the Yin residence. Not far away, the tea shop owner was also listening attentively, but when he heard this, he felt a little strange. When did this Miss Chui become so close to Miss Yin? He had opened a tea shop here for so many years, but he had never heard of Miss Yin and Miss Chui having a relationship. Only Yundong and the others knew about these problems. She said that she was visiting Miss Yin, but wasn't she actually going for by Muzi? The gossiper continued. Isn't it a coincidence today? Didn't second Miss Yin also return her maiden home just now? She heard that Miss Chui was here. Shouldn't they meet and talk? Who knew that Miss Chui would suddenly go crazy for some reason? She suddenly smashed Second Miss Yan's head when no one was around and knocked Second Miss Yan unconscious. What? Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Someone quickly asked, could it be that Miss Chui couldn't stand Second Miss Yan snatching her sister's husband to avenge Miss Yan? Didn't they say that they were friends? That I don't know. That person took another sip of tea before continuing. However, after Second Miss Yan was knocked unconscious, the Yin family immediately went to find Imperial Physician Chui to save her. Is Second Miss Yan all right? How is she fine? Even Imperial Physician Chui said that it's especially serious. So what should we do? What could he do? Of course, he had to save her. However, I heard that Second Miss Yan's injury can only be treated with a very precious medicine. What's it called? Baimu? I don't remember very clearly. Anyway, I heard that Master Yin gave this medicine to Second Miss Yan. His heart ached. What else did Gu Yundong not understand? She looked at Tong Shueitao, whose eyes were wide open. Then, she threw down the silver and left with her. Miss is what the Yin family did what I think it is. What do you think? Gu Yundong smiled. She knew it. How could Second Master Yin bear to use good medicinal herbs to pay a nephew who was not close to him? This was a brilliant move. He would wait for Cui Lan to come to his door and call his concubine's daughter, who was not doted on much, home. He would let Cui Lan personally smash her head and find Imperial Physician Chui to diagnose her. Imperial Physician Chui said that Muzi had to be used to save her, and the Yin family happened to have such a Muzi that they wanted to give to the Chui family. Imperial Physician Chui had no other choice. It was Cui Lan who smashed the person. Could it be that he wanted his daughter to become a murderer? Therefore, Cui Lan could not take Muzi away. She could only give it to the second daughter of the Yin family. However, Muzi would definitely not be used. Otherwise, why would Yihai spend so much effort? As for how the Yin family operated, how to get Cui Lan to do it, how to ensure that Second Miss Yin had to use Muzi to save her life, and how to deceive Imperial Physician Chui, only the Yin family knew. Among them, the most innocent person was probably that Second Miss Yin. She had not been back to her parents' house for a long time. She did not expect such a big show to be waiting for her the moment she returned. Gu Yundong sighed secretly and walked home. It was already so late, so she could only go to the shop tomorrow. From the looks of it, she indeed had to think of ways to get this Muzi from the Yin family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1334. Who said that the shop was rented? Gu Yundong and Tong Shueitao did not know that not long after they left, another horse came to the entrance of the Yin residence. A man got off the horse and threw the reins to the servant guarding the door. Then, he rushed into the residence to see Second Miss Yin. Shao Qingyuan had yet to return when Gu Yundong and his wife returned home. It was not until half an hour later that Shao went hurriedly entered the house. Where's brother Shao? Gu Yundong asked curiously. Shao Wen said, young master can't come back tonight. He was pulled by Imperial Physician Song to talk at the Imperial Hospital. It seems like he can't leave. So he asked me to come back and tell Madam not to wait. Gu Yundong pursed his lips. Could Song Dejiang understand the ways of the world? Wouldn't he feel guilty for dragging someone else's husband to spend the night? Even so, Gu Yundong still tidied herself up and went to bed early. She wanted to discuss the Yin family with Shao Qingyuan when he returned. There was also the matter of brother Shao looking for his parents. The last information he received from Tao Yin was about the home mansion. However, such insider information about noble families was not something that Gu Yundong could find out by ascending Tong Shueitao to inquire. Therefore, she wanted to ask Song Dejiang or Qin Wenzheng for help. Now, she had to open the shop first. Thus, early the next morning, Gu Yundong still brought Tong Shueitao to the shop. The shop near Shuangba was not far from Hitai Alley. It was in a relatively prosperous area and was said to be very big. Gu Yundong followed the address and was very satisfied with the streets she passed. Not bad. This area did not look cheap. The families living nearby were all rich. It was obvious that they had money and time. It was indeed a suitable place to open a milk tea shop. As Gu Yundong thought, she stopped in front of a two-story shop. "Miss, this is it." Tong Shuitao also looked at the shop in front of her with bright eyes. The capital was indeed the capital. Even the shop was bigger than the Shuanhe prefectures. They were both 2 stories, but the shop in front of them looked a little taller and much more imposing. "Let's go and take a look." The two of them walked forward. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, they frowned at the same time. "How did the door open?" Tong Shuitao asked curiously and stepped out to take a closer look. The 2 doors that opened were indeed from this shop. Gu Yundong thought of what Nie Shuang had said. Maybe the shopkeeper came clean. She remembered that Nie Shuang had said that she had left the key to this shop for Nie Tsong, who was still in the capital. She had asked Nie Tsong to get someone to help clean the shop from time to time, lest too much dust accumulated and the shop became dilapidated. Tong Shuitao nodded. The 2 of them continued forward and walked in through the 2 open doors. However, just as she reached the door, she heard a high-pitched voice coming from inside. "How is it? Isn't the shop good? Not only is this place spacious, but there's also a 2nd floor and a courtyard at the back. Most importantly, the location is good. Most of the people coming and going are rich. If you rent this shop and do any business, you definitely won't lose out." His voice was a little rough, but the meaning behind his words made Gu Yundong frown. "Rent? You want to rent this shop? Who said you could rent it? And who agreed?" "Miss, what's going on? Why do I feel that something is wrong?" Gu Yundong pursed her lips and took out the note Nie Shuang had written for her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1335. Do you have a deeds? 68, Jinlan Street. Not a word wrong. Gu Yundong kept the note and strode in with Tong Shuitao. As soon as she entered, she saw a woman in her 40s talking. "You have to consider it carefully. My shop is very popular. Many people come to see it. It's now or never." As she spoke, she happened to see Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao enter. Her eyes immediately lit up, and she hurriedly walked over to ask, "You're also here to look at the shop, right? Come, let me introduce you." Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and sized her up for a while. She had thought that she was a broker, but now the woman looked like a servant from a rich family. Could it be Nie Tsong's idea? He wanted to rent out the shop? She ignored the old woman and looked at the other 2 people standing in the shop. The man and woman seemed to be husband and wife. Their eyes were shining as they looked at the shop, but they looked a little hesitant. They were trying their best to consider. However, when they saw Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao, their conflicted expressions changed. They immediately came over and pulled the old woman over. "Mother Chun, we took a liking to this shop first. How can you rent it to someone else?" Mother Chun immediately smiled happily. "I already said that many people came to look at my shop. Then, did you take a fancy to this shop? All right, let's sign the lease now. Give me half a year's rent and deposit." At the mention of silver, the couple hesitated again and said softly, "But the rent is too expensive. It's 30 taels a month, and we have to pay for half a year." A trace of annoyance and disdain flashed across Mother Chen's eyes, but she still smiled. "You can't say that. If you do business on this street, it's not difficult to earn more than 100 taels a month. These dozens of taels of silver are nothing to you. You'll get back your capital very quickly." Seeing that they were still hesitating, Mother Chun immediately looked at Gu Yundong. "Madam, what do you think of this shop? You definitely won't lose out if you rent it." Gu Yundong glanced at her and asked, "Does this shop belong to your family?" Mother Chun was stunned. Her eyes were evasive for a moment, but she quickly calmed down. "Isn't that obvious? If it's not my master's, would I take it out to rent? Do you have a deed?" Mother Chun frowned and became impatient. "What's wrong with you? You didn't say that you wanted to rent it. Why are you asking me for the deed? I naturally have the deed. Otherwise, why do I have the key to this shop? I can't just show you this, right?" Mother Chun felt that Gu Yundong was here to cause trouble. She waved her hand and started to chase him away. All right. You have quite a lot of questions. Let me tell you, my shop is very popular. If you don't want to rent it, leave quickly. Don't hinder others here." Gu Yundong avoided Mother Chen's hand and said to the couple, I advise you to see if she has a house deed first. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if the money is wasted. The couple looked at each other. Although they felt that what Gu Yundong said made sense, they were afraid that she also wanted to rent this shop, so she deliberately sowed discord between them and Mother Chun. Hence, they said hesitantly, we don't think so. Mother Chun is someone close to Lady Yin of a Yin residence. The Yin residence is so big. She wouldn't lie to us about dozens of taels of silver, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1336. Find Yet Song Yin residence? Gu Yindong frowned. Was it the Yin residence that she knew? Master Yin Yihai's residence? Gu Yundong asked for confirmation. Mrs. Chun immediately puffed out her chest and raised her eyebrows. That's right. And Mrs. Yan's maid. Our Yin residence is so big. Will we swallow your money? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and felt that something was amiss. She looked at Mother Chun and then at the couple. In the end, she said, it's such a big sum of money. It's best to consider it carefully. If you don't see the deed clearly, you'll regret it in the future. With that, she turned around and left with Tong Shueitao. Mrs. Chun was so angry at Gu Yundong's last sentence that she fell backward. She chased after her for a few steps and pointed at her back with a trembling finger as she scolded. Where did you come from to find trouble? Little b asterisk tch, don't leave if you have the ability. Don't let me see you next time, or it'll teach you a lesson. After cursing for a while, Mother Chin spat fiercely and turned to look at the couple again. Don't listen to her. She just can't bear to see our shop rented out. She must have been sent by our Yin family to sow discord. Come, let's talk about the lease first. However, just as Mother Chun finished speaking, the couple looked at each other and said with a dry smile, Mother Chun, look, your rent is indeed a little expensive. We don't have that much money on hand. How about this? We'll go back and raise the money first and come back another day. They thought about it just now and felt that the girl was right. Mother Chun only had the key. Whenever at the mention of the deed, she changed the topic. Something was wrong. Even if she had the reputation of a Yin residence, it was because the Yin residence was too big. If they suffered a loss and went to the Yin residence, they might be chased out as blackmailers. They would not be able to complain at all. Therefore, they should consider it again. When Mother Chun heard their words, her expression suddenly turned exceptionally ugly. You don't have the money? That's fine. Why don't you pay a month's deposit first? When you gather the rest, you can pay. As soon as she said this, the couple became even more uneasy. They could only smile and say, that's not appropriate. Well, gather the money first. Well, go now. Well, leave first. Then, the two of them immediately walked out of the shop in a hurry and left without looking back. Gu Yundong and Tong Shueitao stood at the entrance of the alley. When they saw the couple come out and Mother Chin spat in the direction of the door, they knew that this deal had not been closed and heaved a sigh of relief. Miss, what should we do now? Gu Yundong pursed his lips. Go find Nyet Song first. Initially, Gu Yundong did not want to look for Nye Kong. She had known Nyet Song for a long time. She was still considered familiar with him. Previously, when he was still in the Shuana prefecture, they had exchanged letters. But after Nyet Song came to the capital, Gu Yundong always contacted Nye Xuan. She had not seen Nyet Song for a long time. This time, Aunt Ku had given her Nyet Song's address so that she could look for him for help if she needed anything. Now, she really had to find him. Gu Yundong immediately brought Tong Shueitao to the Nye family's address. Nyet Song seemed to have been promoted as a 7th-grade official in the capital. He had made contributions when he captured the bandit leader during the disaster. Later, he was recommended by Commander Zhao to come to the capital and worked under a general for a year before he was promoted. In the capital, a rank 7 official position was really very small, completely negligible. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1337. Nye Song's wife, however, the Nye family was not just a merchant family. They also had a background, connections, and money. Although Niet Song was only an insignificant official now, he was very quick-witted. In the future, when he made meritorious contributions and had qualifications, he could still move forward. Therefore, Niet Song's future was visible. Niet Song's residence was still some distance away from the street where Gu Yundong was. Compared to Gu Yundong's three-courtyard house, the Nie residence was much larger. After all, the Nie family was rich and had already bought an estate in the capital. When Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao stood at the entrance of the Nie residence, it was already past noon. She did not have any invitations, so she could only ask the concierge to help pass on a message. The concierge looked at Gu Yundong apologetically and said, "Madam, you should come another day. We have something on today, and young master is not seeing guests." No visitors? Gu Yundong considered whether she should leave or not, but she remembered that her house was far from the Nie family, and it was not easy to make a trip there. Hence, she insisted on meeting Niet Song first. She took out a letter from her sleeve and handed it over. "Then he'll have to trouble you to pass this letter to your young master. Tell him that we came from his hometown in Shuana Prefecture. His family asked me to pass this letter to him and see if he wants to see me." When the gatekeeper heard that she had come from the Shuana Prefecture and had brought a letter from the Nie family, the smile on his face instantly became much more sincere and respectful. He immediately nodded and said, "All right, then wait a moment, madam. He'll be back soon." With that, he ran in with the letter. Gu Yundong waited for less than half a quarter before she saw the concierge running over with Niet Song behind him. After being apart for 2 years, Niet Song looked much darker. She still remembered the first time she saw him at the city gate. Although he was wearing the clothes of a soldier, his face was very tender. He did not look like a soldier. Instead, he looked more like a white-faced scholar. At that time, Gu Yundong had felt that he was a gentleman and polite. He did things at a moderate pace and had been nurtured since he was young. But now, he had changed drastically. He walked with large strides and became much leaner and capable. In her eyes, Niet Song was a completely different person. In Niet Song's eyes, Gu Yundong had also changed. He had a deep impression of that thin, small, and exceptionally tenacious little girl back then. He did not expect that after not seeing her for 2 years, not only had she become prettier, but she had also become someone else's wife. Niet Song quickly stood in front of her. "Sister Gu." It was a familiar voice. The barrier between them that they had not seen for 2 years was instantly gone. Gu Yundong suddenly smiled widely. "Young Master Nye, long time no see." Niet Song laughed. "Why are you still calling me Young Master Nye?" He shook his head and turned around, but he didn't see Shao Qingyuan. "Where's your husband?" "He had something to do, so I came alone." Niet Song did not probe further. He quickly moved half of his body aside. "Come in first. Let's talk inside." Gu Yundong led Tong Shuitao inside. The Nie residence was really big. It was a large courtyard with many servants. Along the way, many people stared at them, as if they were very curious about the woman who had been personally led in by the young master. Gu Yundong keenly saw a servant girl rushing to the backyard. She recalled that Niet Song was now a married man and immediately asked, "I haven't seen your wife yet. Should I meet her first? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1338. Second Miss Yin. Gu Yundong thought that Niet Song would agree readily, but he did not expect him to frown when he heard this. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "You should meet her, but..." He paused and sighed. "It's just that she's sick. She's resting in the backyard now. All the more reason for me to go over and take a look." Niet Song nodded. "All right, I'll bring you there." As he spoke, he led Gu Yundong to the backyard. Soon, they stopped in front of a courtyard called Anha Garden. Gu Yundong immediately saw the servant girl who had run away earlier. She was standing in the courtyard with her head slightly lowered. The two of them entered the courtyard. Gu Yundong stood in the central room, while Niet Song walked in first. A servant served tea to Gu Yundong, so she sat outside and waited slowly. Occasionally, low voices could be heard coming from the inner room. It should be Niet Song telling his wife her identity. After a while, Niet Song came out. Sister Gu, come in. With that, he led her into the inner room. There was still the smell of medicine in the room. It seemed that Niet Song was right. His wife was indeed sick. Gu Yundong turned around and saw that a woman had already been helped up. Her forehead was wrapped in gauze, and she was leaning against the headboard. She looked over carefully with hazy eyes. Gu Yundong was stunned when she saw her face clearly. Wasn't this the second daughter of the Yin family? Yesterday, when the second daughter of the Yin family alighted from the carriage, although she had only caught a glimpse of her, Gu Yundong was very sure that she was not mistaken. She then looked at the gauze on her forehead and thought of the news that Chui Lan had smashed second Miss Yan's head yesterday. Gu Yundong was speechless. Sister Gu, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with me? A low voice sounded beside her ear. Gu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly shook her head. No, there's nothing wrong. She smiled. It's just that it's my first time seeing sister-in-law Nye, and I was distracted for a moment. Sister-in-law is very beautiful. Yinya immediately lowered her head shyly and whispered, I'm very ugly like this. Sister Gu is the beauty here. As she spoke, she quickly pointed. Sister Gu said, I am not feeling well. I can't treat you well. I'm really sorry. Gu Yindong smiled. I was the one who came uninvited and disturbed your recuperation. I'm the one who should say sorry. Niet Song smiled and interrupted their conversation. All right, you don't have to be so polite anymore. It's weird to hear. He turned to Yinya and said, Rest well first. Sister Gu just came to the capital. I have something to talk to her about. When you're better, you can ask her out to admire the flowers. Okay. Yinya agreed. Then, the maidservant beside her helped her lie down again. When Gu Yundong and Niet Song walked out of the inner room, she opened her eyes again and looked at their backs. Niet Song led Gu Yundong to the reception pavilion and got someone to serve tea. He smiled and said, I've read Aunt's letter. Are you going to stay in the capital for a long time? Have you found a house? I have many courtyards here. Actually, Gu Yundong knew what he was thinking and quickly interrupted him. We've already bought a house. It's over at Hitai Lane. Hitai Alley. That's not close. Gu Yindong nodded. It's a little far, but the house over there is suitable. By the way, can I ask if sister-in-law's forehead was smashed by Chui Lan? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1339. By Muzi is still here. Niet Song was stunned. At the mention of this, a trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. However, he quickly asked in surprise, How did you know that Miss Chui was the one who smashed her? Because I was outside the Yin residence yesterday and saw Chui Lan enter with my own eyes. I also saw sister-in-law enter the Yin residence. Later on, there were rumors that Chui Lan and sister-in-law had an argument. Gu Yundong took a sip of tea and said slowly. Niet Song had an I-see expression on his face, but he quickly realized that something was wrong. You know Chui Lan? And you stayed outside the Yin residence for an entire day? Why do I feel like you were spying on the Yin residence? Gu Yundong shook his head and laughed. Niet Song was still the same Nye Kong. Moreover, after 2 years of training, he seemed to have become even sharper. She did not hide it and said directly, I do know Chui Lan, and am also keeping an eye on the Yin residence. How come? You know that my mother's head was once injured. That's why she's like a child now. Imperial physician Song said that if we want to cure her, we need a very precious and rare medicine. That medicine is by Muzi. For the past 2 years, I've been looking for by Muzi. Later, I learned from Chui Lan that the Yin residence has such a medicine. By Muzi? Niet Song frowned, and his expression immediately became strange. After a long while, he sighed and said, By Muzi was used to save my wife yesterday. The Yin residence is also gone. I know. Gu Yindong interrupted Nye Kong. By Muzi should still be in Yihai's hands right now. He's keeping it well. Niet Song looked puzzled. No. Yesterday, after I found out that my wife was injured, I immediately went to the Yin residence and saw the medicine the doctor gave my wife with my own eyes. Then are you sure that it's by Muzi? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and asked, Do you know that there's a medicine in this world that's very similar to by Muzi? Do you know by Muzi? This question rendered Nie Tsong speechless. He was not a doctor, so it was naturally impossible for him to understand by Muzi. It was only now that he learned from Yundong that this medicine was so precious. Nie Tsong felt that something was amiss. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table. After a long while, he said, "What do you know? How much do you know about Bai Muzi and the Yin residents? Tell me everything." "Before I tell you that, can I ask you something else?" Yundong suddenly looked at him curiously. This expression made Nie Tsong, who was prepared to accept a huge truth, choke. The seriousness from before disappeared. He asked helplessly, "What is it? How did you and sister-in-law become husband and wife?" Yundong's eyes were obviously filled with gossip. The corners of Nie Tsong's mouth twitched. He didn't look like he wanted to say anything. "Aunt couldn't tell you." Yundong shook her head. "After she went back, she only mentioned to me that you were married." At that time, she was puzzled. Why did Nie Tsong return to the Shuana prefecture after getting married? Moreover, it seemed that the Nie family was not very satisfied with this marriage. Otherwise, why would Aunt Ku, Madame Nie, and Nie Shuang be the only ones who came to the capital? Old Master Nie had never come. Nie Tsong felt uncomfortable under her gaze. He couldn't bring himself to say such a private matter. But Yundong looked as if she would not say anything unless he confessed. It was really frustrating. Forget it. Nie Tsong heaved a sigh of relief and began to talk about his relationship with Yinya. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1340. Nie Tsong and Nie Tsong and Yinya met by accident. Yin Ya's life in the Yin family was very difficult. She was the very good-looking daughter of an unloved concubine. Naturally, she would be bullied by others. Moreover, Yihai had always favored boys over girls. He was ambitious and had never cared about the matters in the backyard. Lady Yin was a shrew. In the capital, there were no in-laws to suppress her and no sisters-in-law to keep an eye on her. That backyard was her say. If she wanted to torture the concubine, she would torture the concubine. If she wanted to treat the daughter of a concubine badly, she would treat the daughter of a concubine badly. As for Yinya, she was born the same year as Miss Yin. Mrs. Yin disliked her even more. Therefore, Yinya had been suppressed since she was young. Her personality had become abnormally weak, and she seemed to be very careful and did not dare to speak loudly to anyone. When Nie Tsong first met her, Yinya was being bullied by Miss Yinling. Nie Tsong couldn't stand it anymore and secretly got someone to help her out. However, deep down, Nie Tsong looked down on Yinya. He felt that she was too weak. When faced with trouble, she would retreat and endure as much as she could, as if she had no bottom line at all. Besides, she was good-looking. She would probably die without knowing. After that incident, Nie Tsong threw Yinya to the back of his mind. However, Nie Tsong soon knew where Yin Ya's bottom line was. At her mother's place, Yinya had never retaliated when she was bullied. However, when her mother was bullied, even though she was afraid and trembled all over, she still dared to resist. At that time, Nie Tsong admired her a little. However, the place where he really interacted with Yinya was at the Yin family. At that time, Nie Tsong was invited by Master Yin to the Yin residence as a guest. After he went, he found out that Master Yin had taken a fancy to him and wanted to betroth his legitimate daughter, Yinling, to him. Master Yin knew Nie Tsong's identity. He was a young master of the Nie family in Shuana Prefecture. The Nie family and the Yin family also had business dealings. Now that Nie Tsong had become a 7th-grade official and had a superior to promote him, he would definitely be successful in the future. Furthermore, Nie Tsong himself was elegant and handsome. Yinling had taken a fancy to him after meeting him once. However, Nie Tsong did not have a good impression of Yinling, so he naturally rejected Master Yin tactfully. Yihai didn't say anything on the spot. He just smiled and changed the topic, pretending that he hadn't said anything. Although Nie Tsong was smart, he still lacked some experience in the face of an old fox like Yihai, who had been in the business world for many years. He had been set up. The Yin family wanted to catch him in bed with Yinling and make them a couple. When Yundong heard this, she stopped drinking her tea. She had probably guessed it. In the end, You and Yin were caught. Yes. Yet did not expect the Yin family to be so impolite. Although they were a merchant family, they had to follow the etiquette and rules. However, the Yin family did not care at all. He really wanted to vomit blood from anger when they did such a thing that damaged their reputation. He was indignant at that time and thought of a way to escape. In the end, he accidentally entered Yin Ya's courtyard. In the end, he and Yin were seen by everyone. The other party was Yin Ya, but Niet Song heaved a sigh of relief. He pitied Yin Ya in his heart. This pity made him not reject marrying Yin Ya. If she was weak, so be it. He would spend more effort to protect her or ask the nanny to help her. It was just that getting married to a family like the Yin family made him a little disgusted. However, he had no choice. The matter was settled just like that. To Yin Yihai, although the target had changed from a legitimate daughter to a concubine's daughter, he had achieved his goal of marrying a daughter to Niekong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1341. Raised astray, however, to Mrs. Yin and Yin Ling. This was cutting their hearts. They had put in so much effort to design these things, but in the end, it all benefited that little b** tch Yinya. Lady Yin hated Yinya to the core and even wanted to kill her before she got married. Fortunately, Niet Song had also thought of this. He sent the nanny who had followed him to the capital to take care of his daily life to the Yin residence. He said that the Nye residence had many rules and asked the nanny to teach Yinya first so that she would not make a mistake in the future. Otherwise, if word got out, the Yin residence would lose face. Yin Yihai thought of Yin Ya's unintelligent and timid personality and felt that it made sense, so he agreed. Lady Yin and Yin Ling tried several times, but the nanny caught evidence and brought it to Yin Yihai. Yin Yihai was furious. He wanted to marry into the Nye family, not become enemies. Yin was already Nye Song's fiancée. If she was killed in the Yin residence and the Nye residence's nanny found out, what was the point of joining the two families? Lady Yin and Yin Ling were grounded until Yin got married. Nye Song also wrote a letter and sent it to the Nye family of the Shuana prefecture. The Nye family was very dissatisfied that he wanted to marry a concubine's daughter who was not favored in a merchant family. It was fine, as the Nye family was not very noble either. However, this concubine's daughter's personality was completely useless. How could she be the future mistress of the Nye family? How could she raise the future descendants of the Nye family and help Niet Song in the future? In their opinion, this kind of personality could only be used as a concubine or the wife of a small family. As the main wife, she should at least be able to hold her head high. Old Master Nye flew into a rage. He was very disappointed that Niet Song could not even see through such a small trap. Therefore, only Madame Nye Shuang, and the others went to the capital to resolve this matter and participate in the wedding. Yinya hadn't even seen her father-in-law yet. She felt even more uneasy. Thankfully, Niet Song treated her well. After being taught by the nanny, she finally changed a little. However, how could a personality that had been nurtured for more than 10 years change so much overnight? Yundong sighed after hearing this. It seemed that some of what she had heard in the tea shop must have been spread by Madame Yin on purpose. She had also seen Yin just now. That woman was indeed a coward. Niet Song should have told her his identity. In the eyes of outsiders, Yundong was just a farmer's daughter-in-law. The second daughter of the Yin family in the capital actually didn't dare to speak loudly in front of her. However, Yundong could not say anything. It was not Yin Ya's fault that she had become like this. It was obvious that Mrs. Yin had deliberately raised her astray. A native family had a huge impact on a person's personality. It was already not easy for her to muster the courage to protect her mother. Now, can you tell me why you're watching the Yin residence? After talking about his past with Yinya, Niet Song was still a little embarrassed. He touched his nose and coughed lightly. He quickly changed the topic and asked about serious matters. Didn't I tell you? It's for buying Muzi. Yundong took a sip of tea and said with a smile. Knowing Niet Song's attitude towards the Yin residence, Yundong was in a good mood. Niet Song frowned. How did you know that the Yin residence had by Muzi? I didn't even know about this. Chui Lan told me. Gu Yundong briefly explained that she had met Chui Lan on the ship, but Chui Lan had taken a fancy to her man and used by Muzi to threaten her to leave Shao Qingyuan. In the end, she was almost killed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1342. It'll help you when Song heard this. He did not say anything for a long time. After a long while, the corners of his mouth twitched. You hung Chui Lan over the river for half a day? Forced her to tell you? Gu Yindong rolled her eyes. Is that the main point? And you have to understand that she attacked me first. Do you want me to pretend that nothing happened? Not really. I just realized that you seem to be especially good at turning passive into active. Especially when someone wanted to set her up, she used them in the end. They'll take that as a compliment. Nietsong was speechless. He shook his head to get rid of the messy thoughts in his mind and began to think about Bai Muzi. According to what you said, Bai Muzi is precious, and my father-in-law and uncle don't have a good relationship, so he can't bear to help him repay the favor. He can't bear to give it to the Chui family, so he naturally can't bear to give it to Yinya. So, the more Nyet Song thought about it, the uglier his expression became. He suddenly stood up and slammed the table. He's clearly using Yinya to force the Chui family to give up on Bai Muzi. The Yin family didn't suffer any losses, and Chui Lan didn't suffer any losses. However, only my wife was innocently implicated. Not only was her head smashed, but she also had to watch the Yin family put on a show of deep father-daughter love for us and blame everything on us. It's simply preposterous. Bastard. No wonder after Imperial physician Chui diagnosed her, they sent him away on the grounds that Miss Chui was the culprit. They found another doctor for Yinya. They were afraid that Dr. Chui would find out that Bai Muzi was not needed to treat her. Nietsong was furious. He lifted his leg and kicked over a stool at the side. The people outside the door heard a crisp sound and could not help but look inside. They saw the young master's ashen face and sharp eyes. All of them immediately looked at Gu Yundong worriedly, thinking that she had made the young master lose his temper. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong was calmly drinking tea. Instead, she looked very relaxed and was not affected by his anger at all. After a long time, she waved her hand for Nyet Song to sit down. All right, it's useless to lose your temper now. We have to consider this matter at length. Anyway, we can't let your wife suffer, right? Nyet Song sat down and drank 2 mouthfuls of tea before gradually calming down. He glanced at Gu Yundong. You want Bai Muzi? Yeah. It'll help you. Cough, cough. Gu Yundong choked on her tea. Of course, she hoped that Nyet Song would help her. She had thought of a lot of words to convince him, but before she could say a word, he took the initiative to mention it. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Are you really going to help me? Of course. The Yin residents really think I'm a pushover. It's fine if they bullied Yinya in the past, but at that time, she was the daughter of the Yin residents. I couldn't do anything about it. Now, she's already my wife and the young madam of the Nye residents. How dare they brazenly find someone to smash her head? Do they think they can touch our Nye residents just because they want to? Nyet Song was really disgusted by the Yin family's actions. The problem was that they even pushed the problem onto him. It was said that Yin Ya's inappropriate words had angered Chui Lan, causing Chui Lan to hit her hard and tell her not to find trouble with the Chui residents. All right, he would not cause trouble for the Chui residents. He would seek revenge from the Yin residents. Gu Yundong asked him, what do you plan to help? Nyet Song thought for a moment. We have to consider this matter at length. He hadn't thought of it yet. Gu Yundong said, actually, I have something else to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1343. Going too far, go ahead. Nyet Song knew that Gu Yundong had just found out that his wife was the second daughter of the Yin family. There must be something else going on. Gu Yundong pursed her lips. You know, Annie Dai, Nye Shuang, and I opened a milk tea shop in Shuana Prefecture. The last time Nye Shuang came to the capital, she bought a shop in the capital and planned to use it to open a milk tea shop. Yes, that's true. I know where the shop is. They'll bring you to take a look later. I've been there, Yundong said. Just now, I went to look at the shop according to the address Nye Shuang gave me, but I realized that the door of the shop was open. An old woman called Mother Chun claimed to be Mrs. Yan's servant. She was introducing the shop to someone. She said that she wanted to rent the shop out for 30 taels a month. What did you say? Nye Tsong suddenly stood up, a look of astonishment on his face. Yundong asked, the key to the shop, the key to the shop. I asked you to keep it. As expected, Yundong sighed. It seemed that the key had either been coaxed away by Mrs. Yin or taken away under threat. Previously, she did not understand. But now, Yundong understood what Mrs. Yin was thinking. That shop was empty anyway. If she rented it to someone else, she could earn some rent. How could that not do? It didn't matter even if Nye Tsong found out later. Nye Tsong could be considered her son-in-law anyway. Could he slap her face in public? Men all cared about their face. It was just an empty shop. It wasn't like the Nye family didn't have money. They could just buy another one later. Perhaps the shop would become hers as she rented it. They're going too far. Nye Tsong really didn't expect so many things to happen in one day. He turned around. He'll go ask Yinya. Yundong was stunned and quickly pulled him back. She's still injured and timid. If you go over so angrily, she'll think that you're going to denounce her. Won't she be even more afraid in the future? If the couple's relationship was damaged, wouldn't she be the culprit? Nye Tsong clenched his fists tightly. When he thought of Yin Ya's personality, he instantly felt discouraged. He sat back down and rubbed his temples. Why did so many things happen just after returning to the Yin residence? He could not stop her in time. So what should we do? Yundong thought for a moment. He'll ask, what's the difference? Speaking of which, he was Yin Ya's husband. No matter what, Yundong was still a stranger, right? Yundong could not be bothered with him. She stood up, cleaned her clothes, and went back to Ana Garden. As expected, Yin did not sleep. Yundong guessed that she would not be able to sleep at this juncture. When she saw Yundong coming over, she quickly got up again. Yundong immediately stopped her. Yin turned her head, but she did not see Nye Kong. She was at a loss. She had a feeling that something bad had happened. Yundong secretly exhaled and squeezed out a smile. Her voice became gentler. Sister-in-law, I just found out that you suffered a lot. Your head was smashed by someone. It looks like you bled a lot. How is it? Does it still hurt? To be honest, my husband is also a doctor. He even taught me how to relieve pain. Do you want me to take a look at you? Yinya quickly said, no need. No need. It doesn't hurt. It's just a small injury. It only hurt when I applied the medicine yesterday. It's fine now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1344, a different version. That's good. When sister-in-law is in pain, you must not hold it in. You must use medicine in time when there are injuries. The more you hold it in, the worse it will be. My husband told me that nothing is more important than your health. Yinya nodded and said softly, Sister Gu and my husband are so close. You and Brother Nyan are not bad either. I think he's very concerned about your injuries. Yinya was a little embarrassed, but after talking to Yundong about these topics that she had never mentioned to anyone before, she unknowingly relaxed, and the topics gradually increased. Yundong chatted with her for a while before guiding her to talk about the injury on her head and then Chui Lan. Yundong found it strange. What did you say? How dare Chui Lan hit you so hard? Yinya lowered her eyes. Then, Yundong heard a different version from Yinya. Chui Lan was indeed talking to Yinya alone in the backyard. Yinya only said that she was married and asked Chui Lan to visit her house when she was free. Yinya had the courage to say those polite words. Unexpectedly, Chui Lan, who was standing behind her, suddenly reached out and pushed her forward. Ya's head hit the stone table. Therefore, she wasn't hit by a rock at all but knocked. For some reason, it was completely different outside. Of course, Chui Lan firmly denied that she had done on purpose. She said that for some reason, her foot slipped. She had wanted to pull Yinya to regain balance with her help, but she did not expect to push her back. But these words were not convincing at all. Moreover, even if what she said was true, it was true that Yinya was injured from her push. Gu Yundong's lips curled up mockingly. So that was how it was. She found it strange. Yinya and Cui Lan did not have any deep hatred. They did not know each other in the past. How could Cui Lan be so ruthless to Yinya just because of a few words? However, the Yin family blamed her for saying those words in front of Yinya. Cui Lan had yet to get married, so she must have been provoked by her. It was fine if Yinya got married herself, but she even flaunted in front of Cui Lan. All of this was Yin Ya's fault. Yinya was actually convinced just like that. Gu Yundong could not help but roll her eyes. This woman was lucky that she had met Niet Song, or she could be easily killed. You were unconscious at that time? Were you conscious when Imperial Physician Cui came? Naturally, she wasn't awake. When Yinya woke up, Niet Song was already here. The wound on her head had been bandaged. She didn't even know that Imperial Physician Cui had come to take her pulse. But then I fell asleep again. When I was half asleep, I heard someone talking outside the bed. Mrs. Yin and Yin Ling were the ones who spoke. The two of them were muttering over there, saying that Yin Yihai was biased and actually let her use such a precious by Muzi. In order to save her life, she did not even listen to the old master. The medicine had clearly been promised to be Yin Ling's dowry. Now that the priceless dowry was gone, Yin Ling had suffered a huge loss. Yin Yihai even reprimanded the mother and daughter, saying that Yinya was his daughter after all. Although he didn't dote on her in the past, she was still his biological daughter. How could he watch her die? Not to mention by Muzi. Even if it was something even more precious, as a father, he would do everything he could to find it. These words made Yinya feel complicated. She felt guilty, touched, and uneasy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1345. Returning the favor, but Gu Yundong understood that the whole family knew that she had woken up and was deliberately putting on an act in front of her. Therefore, when Mrs. Yin asked her to give her the key to Nie Shuang's shop, although she was unwilling, she still gave it to her. In the end, Mrs. Yin couldn't wait to get Mrs. Chun to rent the shop out. She wanted to settle it before Nie Song knew. Unexpectedly, as the other owner of the shop, Gu Yundong came to the shop and bumped into him. All right, Gu Yundong had gotten everything she needed to know from Yinya. She saw that Yinya was already very tired after saying so much and quickly persuaded her to rest. She only turned around and left after she lay down. Niet Song had been outside the whole time. He had actually heard the conversation between Gu Yundong and Yinya. It was precisely because he understood everything that his expression became even uglier. When he saw Gu Yundong come out, he exhaled slightly. Thank you for today. If you hadn't told me this, I would have been kept in the dark. She didn't even tell me about what happened in the Yin family. As he spoke, he could not help but laugh bitterly. We're already husband and wife. Gu Yundong did not know what to say. Although they were husband and wife, Yinya felt extremely insecure. There was no one around her to talk to, so she did not know how to say some things. Gu Yundong said as they walked out, "Take it slow. Sister-in-law married you under those circumstances back then. She was also afraid that she would trouble you and be hated by you. It's normal for her to have such thoughts. I think you're quite close to her. Now that you're in the capital, you should often come to visit. I think she'll become different if she spends more time with you." Gu Yundong's eyes widened. She was very busy. Niet Song hurriedly said, "Alternatively, just bring her along wherever you go. Let her see how you do things. Just treat it as doing me a favor, all right?" The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. All right, no matter what, the first person she met when she brought her mother and siblings to the Shuana prefecture was Niet Song, who had helped their family a lot. Now that he was faced with a difficult problem, Gu Yundong naturally would not reject it. A favor indeed had to be repaid. The two of them walked out of the courtyard and bumped into a nanny on the way. She should be the nanny that Niet Song had said he had sent to Yin Ya's side. As expected, Niet Song introduced, "This is Nanny Chi." Nanny Chi knew Gu Yundong. She was very friendly to Gu Yundong and greeted her with a smile. Then, Niet Song told Nanny Chi what had happened in the Yin residence. It was obvious that he trusted Nanny Chi very much. Nanny Chi frowned when she heard this. There was obvious anger on her face. What the Yin residence is doing is still so demeaning. Yinya is still injured. Please keep her company. Young master, don't worry. I will take good care of young madam. Then, Nanny Chi went on a garden. Previously, Nanny Chi had always protected Yinya when she was by her side in the Yin residence. Later on, after Yinya married into the Nye residence, because of her personality, Nanny Chi was still by her side. She had brought Yinya to handle family matters, but it had only been a short time. In addition, when they got married, the Nye family was not very satisfied with Yinya, so Yinya did not dare to take charge of family matters. This resulted in no progress. Nanny Chi had no choice. Yin Ya's personality could not be nurtured overnight. She could only slowly change. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1346. Do you dare make a move? Gu Yundong and Nye Song returned to the hall and asked him, what are your plans for the Yin residence? First, we have to clear Yin Ya's name. Everybody said that it was her own fault that Chuilan hit her because of Yin Ya's loose tongue. Everybody said that the Yin family had even disobeyed old Master Yan's orders to save Yinya, making Yin Yihai and his wife be blamed by old Master Yin for being unfilial. Everybody said that the Yin family even took out Yin Ling's dowry to save Yin Ya's life. All of this was clearly a conspiracy, but in the end, Yinya had to carry all of the blame. Why? Was it because they had not tortured her enough in the past? Now that she was no longer in their control, they had changed their method to shackle her? Dream on. She had to expose these lies one by one so that Yinya would no longer feel uneasy about the Yin residence. It also made all the rumors outside transfer to the Yin residence. Yinya did not dare to go out now. How could it not be because of these rumors? Except, do you have any ideas? It did not occur to him for a moment. Gu Yundong glanced at him and then at him again. Nye Song felt uncomfortable under her gaze. If you have an idea, just say it. Don't have such an expression. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to be schemed against. Gu Yundong was speechless. Was her character that bad? Gu Yundong snorted and finally said, I have an idea. I just want to ask you if you dare to blow this matter up. Blow this matter up? Yeah, I dare. Gu Yundong paused. Even if it blows up, it might put sister-in-law in a difficult situation. Isn't she in a difficult enough situation already? Gu Yundong thought about it and felt that it made sense. In fact, if the matter blew up, the Yin family's reputation would be damaged. Although Yinya might be affected, she was already married to Nye Cong. As long as Nye Song's attitude towards her remained unchanged, the impact would be limited. It was better than being schemed against by her family. The good reputation went to Yin Yihai, Mrs. Yin, and Yin Ling's family. In the end, she had to bear all the bad reputation and not even have a friend. Tell me first, what's your idea? Gu Yundong exhaled and told him her plan in a low voice. Nye Song nodded as he listened. A moment later, he suddenly clapped his hands. It's feasible, but we still have to rely on sister-in-law for this plan. Tell sister-in-law clearly later and ask her if she agrees. Nye Song said nonchalantly, she will definitely agree. We're doing this for her own good. Gu Yundong. She resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Nye Song, this is the reason why Yinya didn't tell you about those things. You also said that you're husband and wife. Since you're husband and wife, shouldn't you explain these things clearly? Especially since this is closely related to her. What if you don't explain clearly and she misunderstands? If you don't say anything and she doesn't say anything, are you going to continue being husband and wife? Nye Song was stunned. He thought about it and felt that it made sense. All right, go back and ask sister-in-law first. He'll come back tomorrow. If she agrees, we'll carry out the plan. Gu Yundong looked like she was about to leave. If she doesn't agree, well, think about other things. Remember, speak nicely and patiently. Make it clear so that sister-in-law understands that you're helping her vent her anger and make her feel at ease. Nye Song nodded. Got it. You're leaving just like that? Aren't you staying for dinner? No, thank you. Nye Song could only send her out. Unexpectedly, just as she reached the door, she saw someone standing in the corner outside. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1347. The Emperor's Gift. Yundong's eyes lit up when she saw him, and she quickly ran over. Brother Shao, you're back. Yes, I came back in the afternoon. Shao Qingyuan smiled at her, then looked up and nodded at Cong. Long time no see, young master Nya. Long time no see. I didn't expect the person who was almost arrested and sent to the government office to become Sister Gus' husband. Song still remembered the first time he met him. Shao Qingyuan had been reported as a thief and was captured by 2 constables to the government office. At that time, it should have been the first time Shao Qingyuan and Yundong met. They were quite fated. At the mention of his dark history, Shao Qingyuan's face stiffened for a moment. However, he quickly returned to normal. He nodded at Cong. Thank you for your help back then, young master Nya. Haha, sure. Song wanted to invite Shao Qingyuan in, but he was rejected. We still have something to do. We'll visit another day. Song did not force them and watched them leave. Shao led the carriage and stood not far away. The 2 of them chatted as they walked towards the carriage. Brother Shao, how did you know that I was in the Nya residence? Shao said that you went to look at the shop, but I didn't see you when I went to the shop. I asked around and heard that an old woman brought people over to rent out the shop. I guess that you might want to ask Song about the situation, so I came over. Shao Qingyuan spoke to Yundong in a completely different tone than he spoke to Cong. Brother Shao, you're getting smarter and smarter. You taught me well. Have you seen Imperial Physician Song? I happen to have something I need his help with. I saw him. He'll bring you there another day. Okay. Song stood at the entrance and watched as their figures got further and further away. He suddenly felt a heavy blow in his heart. This was the first time he had seen a couple interact like this. Perhaps Yundong was right, to be honest. He took a deep breath, turned around, and strode towards the Ana Garden. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan also got into the carriage. Tong Shuitao sat on the shaft outside. As soon as the carriage moved, Yundong told Shao Qingyuan everything that had happened in the past 2 days. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Song's wife is actually the second daughter of the Yan family? Yeah, I was also shocked when I saw it previously. Then how do you plan to obtain by Muzi? Yundong chuckled. That's why I need Imperial Physician Song's help. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but pinch her nose. He will definitely help. Even if he didn't help, Shao Qingyuan would persuade him until he changed his mind. Yundong asked about his visit to the Emperor. Actually, there was nothing special. It was just a report on the vaccination. The Emperor was busy every day and didn't have the time to chat with Shao Qingyuan. Moreover, Wenzheng had returned to the capital a few days earlier than them. He had already said what he needed to say. However, before Shao Qingyuan left, the Emperor mentioned Yundong and said that he wanted to see her when he had the chance. By the way, the Emperor also gave you a gift. A gift? Yes, for our wedding. Yundong was instantly interested. Where is it? At home, of course. Shao Qingyuan saw her looking around and laughed. He couldn't bring it with him. Yundong was a little disappointed. Fortunately, the carriage soon arrived at Hitai Alley. After alighting from the carriage, Yundong could not wait to enter the house to see the gift from the Emperor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1348. Starting today, it was a jade ruby. Yundong looked at the 2 centimeters long jade ruby in front of her, and the corners of her mouth twitched. All right, she should have known. How novel could the wedding gift that the Emperor had thought of at the last minute be? However, at least this was a reward from the Emperor, so the meaning was different. Yundong touched the jade ruby. He'll find a box and keep it properly. I can't lose this. It's fine as long as you make the decision. Shao Qingyuan looked at her excited expression and felt much better. Yundong searched for a long time, but could not find a box. In the end, she found one in her spatial storage and pretended to find it in the corner to keep the jade ruby. After putting it away, Yundong asked about Shao Qingyuan and Imperial Physician Song. Has he left the palace? He left the palace. He came out with me this afternoon. Song Dejiang had been in the palace for the past 2 days because the empress had fallen ill and could not recover. Now that she had finally recovered, Song Dejiang was also exhausted. This was how it was to treat the nobles in the palace. It was not easy to be an imperial physician. Yundong sympathized with Song Dejiang, so her original plan to visit him tomorrow morning was changed to this afternoon. The next morning, Yundong and Shao Qingyuan went to the Nie residence first. He wondered how Nie Song and Yin were doing. When the two of them entered the Nie residence this time, the gatekeeper let them in directly. When Yundong saw Yin again, she realized that her eyes were a little red and swollen, as if she had cried hard. However, it was also very obvious that the situation between her and Nie Song had changed. How should it be put? It was as if the unfamiliar distance from before was gone. Yundong glanced at Nie Song, who coughed lightly and blushed. Yundong raised her eyebrows. It seemed that they had had an open talk. Yin Ya's voice was slightly hoarse. Compared to yesterday, she was much more energetic. She looked at Yundong and said, "Sister Gu, I already know. My husband told me about the Yin residence. I was too stupid to see what was going on. Now I know everything. I think your plan is good." "I agree." Yundong was stunned and confirmed again. "Do you know what you might face after this plan?" "I know. Maybe. I don't have a family anymore." Yinya lowered her head slightly and smiled bitterly. "Actually, I don't have a family now. After a woman was married, her family was her backing, which was to stand up for her after she suffered from her in-laws, so that she would have a way out after being bullied. However, with Yinya, her maternal family was the one who really pulled her into eternal damnation. Then your mother." Yundong knew that she still had someone she could not let go of. Yinya raised her head and smiled. She doesn't have much attachment to the Yin family to begin with. If it weren't for the fact that she couldn't bear to part with me, she would have wanted to go to a Taoist temple to cultivate a few years ago. After I got married, she planned to go. I thought too simply that my father would more or less care about my current status. I thought that her life would be better. Unexpectedly, her father did not mind sacrificing her for Bai Muzi. It was obvious that her mother's life in the residence was not easy either. Yundong sighed inwardly. However, she was relieved that Yin had really gotten over it. She looked at Nie Cong then. "Shall we start tomorrow?" "No need. Let's do it today. The earlier the better." Nie Song narrowed his eyes, his lips curling into a cold smile. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1349. Things have been made big. Everyone's opinions were unanimous, and the rest was easy. After Yundong and Shao Qingyuan left the Nie residence, they went straight to look for Song Dejiang. As for Nie Song, he came to the Chui residence aggressively, wanting to settle scores with Chui Lan. Imperial physician Chui and his daughter, who originally thought that everything was over, were stunned when they saw him bringing people to attack them. Nie Song pointed at Chui Lan and scolded, "My wife had no grievances with you. She only said that she was getting married and kindly invited you to her house as a guest. How did she offend you? How did these 2 sentences offend you that you were so ruthless to her and wanted to kill her?" Chui Lan's face turned pale. When Nie Song came to look for her, all the neighbors nearby had come to watch the commotion. When they heard this, they immediately started whispering. Chui Lan's reputation was not good to begin with. She did not have a smile on her face all day long, and she basically did not respond to her neighbors' greetings. As time passed, everyone felt that this person was not easy to get along with, especially after Chui Lan started studying medicine and ran around with her father to treat men. She did not know how to avoid it at all, so everyone looked at her even more strangely. 2 days ago, what happened in the Yin residence had actually spread here. Although Chui Lan had explained, no one believed her. No one knew where the rumors came from, but they said that she ran to someone's house and smashed the Yin family's daughter's head with a stone. This was terrible. Was there something wrong with this girl's brain? Hence, the Chui father and daughter did not go out for the past 2 days and stayed at home obediently. Unexpectedly, Nie Song came knocking on their door and shouted loudly, even though they were keeping a low profile. It was ridiculous. Imperial Physician Chui was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He stood in front of Chui Lan and said, "Nonsense. You're simply spouting nonsense. My daughter didn't harm Madame Yin at all. She slipped and accidentally pushed your wife, causing her to hit the stone table. How did she become ruthless?" Chui Lan, who was standing behind him, also defended herself loudly. "Yes, I accidentally slipped. I didn't push her at all. I didn't. Don't slander me here. Get out, get out." Accidentally pushed her? Why is it completely different from what my father-in-law said? Besides, how can it be so coincidental that you slipped after my wife said that? Who would believe that? Let me tell you, my wife is unconscious now. As her husband, I will definitely not let this matter rest. You, Imperial Physician Chui was furious. I don't know what Master Yin said, but this was an accident. You make it sound so nice. Can an accident offset a life? Yet Song sneered as he took a step forward. Imperial Physician Chui gritted his teeth. What do you mean by a life? Isn't your wife alive and well now? Alive and well? She's unconscious and half dead. Niet Song was aggressive, but Imperial Physician Chui did not back down. One wanted to seek justice for his wife, while the other wanted to prove his daughter's innocence. For a moment, no one could convince the other. Seeing that the two sides were about to fight, they finally attracted the officials of the imperial capital. Imperial Physician Chui was an imperial physician, and Niet Song was a 7th-grade official. Both of them had official positions. Now that a life seemed to be involved, the capital magistrate naturally could not ignore it. Things had gotten out of hand. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1350. Yihai's panic. The magistrate of the capital personally tried this case, but no one was convinced. The magistrate quickly found the other parties involved, the 3 members of the Yin family. Initially, he wanted to ask Yinyu to come over, but when he heard that Yinyu was lying on the bed unconscious, he could only give up. Yihai was stunned. He never expected Niet Song to demand an explanation from the Chui family. He thought that everybody had reached a consensus on this matter. Now that things had blown up, Yihai was a little flustered. He secretly glared at Nye Cong. "Didn't I tell you not to find trouble with the Chui family? Isn't this matter already over? I didn't plan to look for the Chui family at first, but the prerequisite is that my wife is safe and sound. But now, her condition is getting worse and worse. She has been unconscious since this morning, and her breathing is weak. She looks like she's about to lose her life. Shouldn't I find the culprit and let Chui Lan die with my wife?" Yihai's eyes widened in shock. "What did you say? She's unconscious and her breathing is weak? How is that possible? Why is it impossible?" Niet Song said loudly. "Father-in-law, you said that Yin would be fine if she used by Muzi. How did it become like this?" Yihai suddenly felt a little guilty. When he saw Imperial Physician Chui beside him, he hurriedly said, "Yes, Imperial Physician Chui said that by Muzi can save Yin Ya's life." Niet Song immediately sneered. "Doesn't that mean that the father and daughter have joined forces to harm my wife? All the more reason for me to settle the score with them." Yihai said softly, "Then you should discuss it with me. No matter what, I'm your father-in-law and Yin Ya's father." I was so angry that I couldn't care less. Niet Song didn't look like he wanted to suppress his voice at all, so the magistrate in the hall heard him clearly. He didn't stop them and let them speak. Then he figured out the cause and effect of the matter. Not only him, but the commoners outside also heard it clearly. Imperial Physician Chui, who was at the side, heard everything clearly. He immediately retorted, "I was telling the truth. By Muzi could indeed save Lady Yan's life. However, I didn't give by Muzi to her. Master Yin found another doctor to treat her. If anything went wrong during this process, it wasn't my fault." Nia Song snorted. "Are you saying that the doctor my father-in-law found was useless?" Yihai quickly explained. "How is that possible? Although the doctor I found can't compare to Imperial Physician Chui, his medical skills are not bad." The few of them wrangled around, and the hall was a little chaotic. The magistrate heard the gist of it and more or less understood the cause and effect. Hence, he immediately slammed the wooden stick heavily. Silence. Answer my questions honestly. Yes, sir. The magistrate swept his gaze across the people in the hall one by one. A moment later, he began to ask. From the beginning, Madame Yin was pushed to the ground and injured. Now, Madame Chui said that she accidentally pulled Madame Yin after she slipped, but Master Yin also said that Madame Chui was agitated and deliberately attacked. Both sides have their own arguments, but they can't prove themselves. In my opinion, why don't we go to the scene and reconstruct what happened to see whose confession is more reasonable? Actually, in the eyes of the magistrate, what Master Yin said was quite problematic. After all, who would suddenly go crazy and attack after hearing 2 sentences? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1351. Simple, however, when he thought about Chui Lan's reputation and her personality, he felt that it was possible for her to be impulsive. Therefore, the magistrate suggested that they go to the scene to take a look. Yundong knew that this magistrate of the capital was a practical person, so he was never afraid of things getting out of hand. It was difficult to prove that she had really slipped. After all, it had been a few days. Could it be that the stone that caused Chui Lan to slip was still there? How could they prove it? But it did not matter. Yundong's original intention was not to prove this matter. As long as the magistrate investigated, some clues would naturally be dug out. For example, who was the person who had Imperial Physician Chui check their pulse and prove that they needed by Muzi to save their life? In any case, it was not Yinya. Yinya's injuries were not serious. How could an Imperial Physician like Imperial Physician Chui not notice? According to Yundong's understanding, when Imperial Physician Chui took the pulse, it was through the bed curtains. The person in the bed curtains reached out for Imperial Physician Chui to take their pulse, and Imperial Physician Chui did not see who was inside at all. The Yin family had deliberately found someone who needed by Muzi to save his life. How could there be no trace of such a thing? The magistrate could discover it if he investigated seriously. If he were to make deductions after discovering it, it would be obvious what the Yin family had done. As expected, the magistrate brought people to the backyard of the Yin residence. There was no way to determine if Chui Lan had slipped or done it on purpose. However, when he asked the servants in the residence, he heard that something was amiss. Soon, the magistrate realized that the person whose pulse Imperial Physician Chui checked back then was not second Miss Yin at all. It was someone who had been judged by another doctor to need by Muzi to save his life. After that person was brought back to the residence by Yin Yihai to recuperate for a day, Yas accident happened. Imperial Physician Cui's expression turned extremely ugly when he found out. He suddenly pointed at Yin Yihai and said angrily, "Were you lying to me? You didn't use by Muzi at all. I understand. You didn't want to listen to your brother and give by Muzi to the Chui family. So you schemed to make me give up on by Muzi automatically. You even used your own daughter? No wonder. No wonder he felt that something was wrong when he took her pulse. That's right, that person's injuries didn't look like they had just happened. However, at that time, the Yin family kept criticizing Chui Lan in his ear. They cried, threw a tantrum, and wanted to settle scores. He loved his daughter so much that he was frustrated. He subconsciously ignored the details. Imperial Physician Chui was extremely ashamed. If he had discovered it earlier, his daughter might not have had to endure these rumors at all. Yundong's face was also filled with disbelief. He looked at Yin Yihai and asked in shock, "Father-in-law, is what Imperial Physician Chui said true? For by Muzi, you actually deliberately let Chui Lan slip and push my wife? How could you do this? Did you want to kill her?" "I didn't," Yin Yihai denied. "How could I do such a thing? By Muzi was indeed used by Yinya. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be alive." He refused to admit that he had set up his daughter. He was even furious and wanted to pounce on Imperial Physician Chui. "Your daughter almost killed my daughter. Now, for the sake of her innocence, you want to push all the blame to our Yin family. Do you have conscience?" The magistrate frowned, and someone immediately came up to stop Yin Yihai. Imperial physician Shui had already regained his rationality. When he heard this, he sneered. Master Yin, there's no need to be so agitated. It's actually very simple to prove who designed all of this. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1352. Song Dejiang appears. How do you prove it? Yet Song asked cooperatively. Imperial physician Shui narrowed his eyes slightly. Let me take young Madame Ni's pulse again. I can tell if she has used by Muzi. Yihai's expression changed slightly. Then, he rejected him even more righteously. That's impossible. If you take her pulse, what if you have selfish motives and play tricks? I don't agree. However, the magistrate nodded and said, I think Imperial Physician Shui's method is feasible, but Master Yin is right. Imperial Physician Shui is involved, so it's not appropriate to diagnose Lady Yin. Just find another doctor. Sir, Lady Yan's injuries are serious. Ordinary doctors might not be able to tell. Imperial Physician Shui frowned. He did not object to looking for others, but it was useless if they could not tell. However, Imperial Physician Shui was an imperial physician. How many doctors were better than him? Yet Song pursed his lips and looked at a subordinate behind the magistrate. The subordinate nodded slightly and went to the magistrate's side. Sir, I heard that Imperial Physician Song left the palace yesterday and is resting at home. Why don't we try and ask Imperial Physician Song for help? Imperial Physician Song's eyes lit up. That's right. Wasn't Imperial Physician Song a ready-made candidate? Imperial Physician Song? The magistrate frowned. That guy has a very strange temper. It's rare for him to take a break. If we disturb him, I'm afraid he won't help. Lord, I heard that Imperial Physician Song loves to treat difficult illnesses. Look, Madame Yin is currently in a coma, so it can be considered a difficult illness. Furthermore, as the head of the Imperial Hospital, Imperial Physician Song has the responsibility to cooperate with our investigation when he finds out that his Imperial physicians are involved in the case, right? The magistrate felt that it made sense and nodded. Indeed, cold sweat broke out on Yihai's forehead when he heard that. Ask Imperial Physician Song to come over? No, my lord. Imperial Physician Shui is on good terms with Imperial Physician Song. Who knows if he will cover up for him? Shut up. The magistrate suddenly shouted angrily. Imperial Physician Song is the head of the Imperial Hospital appointed by the current emperor. The emperor personally said that Imperial Physician Song is benevolent and fair. You haven't even seen him yet, and you dare to question Imperial Physician Song's morals. I think you're clearly guilty. Yihai broke out in cold sweat after being shouted at by the magistrate. He hurriedly knelt down and said, I was careless and said something wrong. Please forgive me. The magistrate snorted coldly. Get up. We'll talk about whether you're guilty when Imperial Physician Song comes. Don't say anything else about Imperial Physician Song covering up for anybody. Otherwise, according to you, I've worked with Imperial Physician Shui before. Do you think he'll cover up for him too? I wouldn't dare. Yihai stood up, but his head was lowered and his heart was trembling. It was over. He was done for. His mind was spinning crazily, trying to think of some useful way to get through. However, the capital magistrate had already sent someone to invite Imperial Physician Song. He originally thought that Imperial Physician Song would decline. He did not expect him to come immediately. Imperial Physician Song even asked very professionally, Where is the patient? Niet Song led everyone into the Nie residence. The capital magistrate also brought Imperial Physician Shui, Master Yin, and the others in. However, they stopped at Anna Garden. The magistrate sent an old woman to follow Song Dejiang into the inner room. Nia lay on the bed. Her face was pale, and her breathing was very weak. Niet Song sat on the edge of the bed and grabbed one of Yin Ya's hands. He looked up at Song Dejiang eagerly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1353, Song Dejiang's Anger, Imperial Physician Song. Please take a look at my wife. She has been unconscious for an entire day. I'm really worried that she will Song Dejiang secretly pursed his lips. When he raised his head, he said with a serious expression, "Lord Nya, don't worry. Since I'm here, I'll naturally do my best to treat the patient. Please put your wife's hand down first and stand at the side without making a sound." All right. Thank you, Imperial Physician Song." Song immediately put down Yin Ya's hand, got up, and stood behind Song Dejiang. Song Dejiang asked the old woman who had followed her in to put a handkerchief on Yin Ya's wrist. Then, he sat at the side and closed his eyes to take her pulse. However, the more he examined, the uglier his expression became. In the end, his expression became even more serious, as if he had encountered a difficult illness. Song held his breath as he watched from his side. He wanted to speak, but he was afraid of disturbing him. After a while, Imperial Physician Song retracted his hand. Song hurriedly asked, "How is my wife?" Song Dejiang didn't answer him. He continued to instruct the old woman beside him, "Untie the cloth on young Madame Ni's head and let me take a look." "Yes." The old woman quickly and carefully removed the cloth. With this, the wound inside was revealed. The old woman took a look and suddenly gasped. She suddenly took 2 steps back. Imperial Physician Song, "Look." Song Dejiang wasn't the only one who saw it. Song also saw it. His expression changed drastically. "Ow, how did this happen?" Yin Ya's wound had completely festered and was flowing with pus. It was an especially shocking sight. Song grabbed Imperial Physician Song's hand and shouted on the spot, "Imperial Physician Song, you must save her. I beg you, you must save her." When the people outside heard Niet Song's voice, they were shocked and looked at each other. Immediately after, they saw the old woman quickly walk out to the magistrate's side. She said, "Sir, Lady Yan's injuries are very bad. I'm afraid the odds are slim." The magistrate suddenly frowned. Yihai was also stunned. How could that be? It was clearly not serious when her wound was bandaged a few days ago. She woke up at that time and was even sent back to the Nye family. Imperial Physician Shui also pursed his lips. Although there might be a conspiracy in the Yin family, Yin had indeed been pushed by Chui Lan. If Yin Ya's life could not be saved, then Chui Lan. At this moment, other than Yin Ling and her daughter, who had been silent the entire time, no one in the courtyard wanted anything to happen to Yinya. However, reality often did not go as planned. Soon, Song Dejiang came out with an ugly expression. Niet Song followed closely behind. However, his eyes were red and his hands were clenched tightly. He looked very agitated. The magistrate hurried forward and asked, "How is it?" Song Dejiang flew into a rage on the spot and said, "Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. Too ridiculous. How can you treat illnesses like this? You're simply not thinking clearly. You don't take human lives seriously." The magistrate hurriedly got an old woman to pour him a cup of tea. After he drank it, he asked, "How is it? Can you tell the seriousness of Madame Yan's injuries? Did she use by Muzi?" Yin, Yihai, and Imperial Physician Shui immediately became nervous. Song Dejiang slammed the table on the spot. Of course she's never used by Muzi. Not only has she never used that, but she's also used the wrong medicine. "What do you mean?" The magistrate glanced at the pale Yin Yihai and asked, "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1354. Scapegoat. Song Dejiang snorted coldly. Young Madame Ni's injuries weren't serious to begin with. Although she injured her brain by hitting the rock, as long as she was treated well and rested for a few days, she would be fine. By Muzi wouldn't be needed for that injury at all. However, she happened to meet a quack who used other medicine on her. Not only did her originally wound not heal, but it even festered and caused pus. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. You have to know that the human brain is very complicated to begin with. Even us imperial physicians don't dare to be disrespectful when faced with such a situation. We have to be very careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, such a wound might directly cause people to fall unconscious, blind, deaf, and all kinds of illnesses. The current young Madame Ye is in the worst situation. Her condition is already very serious. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid, the magistrate hurriedly asked, then what should we do? Imperial physician Song sighed. Originally, young Madame Ni's injuries didn't require by Muzi. Now, only by Muzi can save her. When Imperial physician Shui heard this, he said on the spot, Master Yin, what else do you have to say? Lord, you heard it. Master Yin didn't use that medicinal herb on Madame Yin at all back then. Madame Yin's previous injuries weren't serious either. All of this was orchestrated by the Yin family. They used their biological daughter to frame my daughter just to keep the Bai Muzi for themselves. Before the magistrate could speak, Yenzheng had already rushed forward. He didn't care if Master Yin was his father-in-law at all. He grabbed the man's collar and said with a livid expression, Are you still human? That's your daughter, your biological daughter. It's fine if you used her, but why didn't you treat her injuries properly? She's now the madam of my Nie family. Do you have any respect for my Nie family? Huh? As he spoke, he clenched his fists as if he was about to punch him. The magistrate hurriedly pulled him back. There was no choice. There were not many people in the courtyard of Anha Garden. He could only stop it himself. Calm down, calm down. Young Master Nie, now is not the time to be rash. The most important thing is to quickly treat your wife's injuries. Yenzheng struggled for a while, but could not break free. He gradually calmed down. He glared at Yihai. Where's Bai Muzi? Since Bai Muzi is still in your hands, quickly hand it out and help Imperial Physician Song save Yinya. Yihai gritted his teeth and looked up, wanting to say something. The magistrate narrowed his eyes. Yihai, now that the evidence is conclusive, what else do you have to say? It's a fact that you slandered Imperial Physician Shui and his daughter and severely injured young Madame Nie. Come back to the government office with me and explain the matter clearly. Yihai choked on his words. He clenched his fists and turned to look at Mrs. Yin. Lady Yin met his meaningful gaze and immediately felt a chill in her heart. They had been husband and wife for many years. What did she not understand? Old Master wanted her to take the blame. But Lady Yin hesitated. After everyone returned to the government office, the magistrate began the interrogation again. Yihai looked at Mrs. Yin a few times. In the end, Mrs. Yin could not withstand the pressure and could only cry out and admit all her crimes. Lord, please spare my life. I was blinded by greed and did not want Bai Muzi to fall into the hands of others. I also hated Yinya for marrying a good husband and was afraid that she would come back for revenge after a good life. That's why I had bad thoughts. All of this is my fault. Master, he did not know. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know a report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1355. Obtaining by Muzi. Yihai immediately looked at her in shock. What did you say? Everyone was speechless. Did he think that everyone else was stupid? However, Mrs. Yin gritted her teeth and confessed to the crime. Master Yin looked heartbroken and even pleaded for Mrs. Yin. Moreover, there was no direct evidence to prove that Master Yin was behind this, so the magistrate had no choice but to convict Mrs. Yin. However, since Master Yin had previously planned to use Bai Muzi to save his daughter's life, and now that Yin Ya's life was indeed at stake, it was a good opportunity to show Master Yan's fatherly heart. The magistrate immediately ordered Master Yin to send Bai Muzi to Imperial Physician Song so that he could use it. Yihai's heart ached terribly, but since things had come to this, he could only hand Bai Muzi over with both hands. With Imperial Physician Song around, he could not use other medicines this time. As for Lady Yin, although she had confessed, the crime was not serious. After all, between Shui Lan and Yinya who had been harmed, Shui Lan had been harmed by rumors, but this situation was not easy to punish. As for Yinya, she was Mrs. Yan's daughter after all. If her mother was severely punished because of her, Yinya would still be accused of being unfilial. Therefore, in the end, the magistrate sentenced Mrs. Yin to 50 strokes of the paddle and fined her some silver. He then sent her back to reflect on her actions. Mrs. Yin was carried back. Half of her life was gone after 50 strokes. However, just as they were about to leave the government office, Yenzheng suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked at Mrs. Yin coldly and said, "Mrs. Yin is so heartless to my wife, but you still tricked her into giving you the key to the shop on Jinlan Street and let Mother Chen rent it out in the name of the Yin family. You're really shameless." Yihai was stunned. He really did not know about this. Cong lifted his chin slightly. "Since Mrs. Yin thinks that the key looks good, they'll give it to you. They'll get someone to change the lock of the shop." Yihai's face turned green as he shouted angrily at Mrs. Yin, "Aren't you going to hand over the key?" Lady Yin trembled and said shakily, "The key is in the residence." Yihai was exasperated. "Is my Yin residence short of food or drink for you? Do you have to be greedy for that little rent? There's so many shops in our Yin family. Aren't they enough for you to deal with? You've really embarrassed me." Lady Yin had a bad temper to begin with. This time, she took the blame for Yihai because she thought that the Yin residence could not lack a man in charge. It was for her and her daughter's future. However, not only was Yihai not grateful, he even scolded her in front of everyone for that little bit of face. Lady Yin was immediately furious. She didn't even care about the pain of her injuries. She bared her teeth and scolded him. "What's the use of that little bit of money you gave me? Aren't you the one who controls the money at home? I'm a mistress of the household, and I manage the huge Yin residence. I only have so little money. What can I do? There are shops at home, but do you want me to manage them? You still have the cheek to criticize me. You bastard, I've already taken the blame." Before she could finish speaking, Yihai stopped her. All right. There's no need to shout about this everywhere. We'll talk about it when we get back. You're still injured." Then he turned to Song and said, "They'll get someone to send the key to you when we get back. You should hurry back too. Yin is still waiting for you at home." Although Lady Yin was unwilling, she still snorted and stopped talking. After the Yin family left, Song only watched from afar. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1356. Falling out. After this incident, Song had completely fallen out with the Yin residents. Although they were still father and son-in-law on the surface, they both knew in their hearts that this was Yihai's idea and Mrs. Yin had taken the blame. Song was angry and did not interact with the Yin residents, so Yihai could not say anything. However, Yihai definitely couldn't bear to part with a big tree like the Nye family. Especially after this incident, the Yin family's reputation would definitely be damaged, and their business would probably plummet. After all, no one wanted to do business with someone with a problematic reputation. This time, they had really suffered a double loss. Because of this, Yihai was even more unwilling to give up on the Nye family. It didn't matter. Their relationship was stiff now because Song was in a fit of anger. However, Yas mother was still in the residence, and Yinya had that kind of personality. Recently, she would be cold to Lady Yin and doted on his concubine. Later, he would ask her to persuade Yinya, and they would be meeting again soon. However, Yihai did not expect this. As soon as he returned home, he heard from his servant that aunt who had heard that master had almost killed Yinya for a medicinal herb. She was disheartened and decided to cultivate in a Taoist temple. Now, she had packed her bags and was ready to leave. Yihai was furious when he heard that. He ran to concubine Hu's courtyard angrily, wanting her to give up on cultivating. However, aunt who held the hairpin to her neck and threatened to kill herself. Yihai was shocked when a usually weak woman suddenly became so crazy. For a moment, he did not know what to do. He had encountered too many things today, causing his mind to be in a mess. However, at this moment, Song came to the door again, saying that he was worried and wanted to personally retrieve the key. When he heard that aunt who had almost committed suicide, he immediately rushed over and said that Yihai was going to vent his anger on aunt who due to the loss of Muzi. She took the key and protected aunt who as she left the Yin residence. Yihai did not dare to push it too far. If something happened to aunt who, the Yin family would be worse off if word got out. They would no longer have a place in the capital. Therefore, when Song left with aunt who, Yihai did not stop her. He thought that it would be good for her to calm down first. He did not expect that once she left, she would never have the chance to come back. Because the Taoist temple that concubine who went to later had a background, the Abbey Dean was once the eldest princess. Even though this princess was already old and had long cut off all ties with the imperial family, with Yihai's status, even if this eldest princess was someone hated by the imperial family, he did not dare to offend her. Yenzheng first brought Aunt Hu back to the Nye residence and let her meet Yihai. After the mother and daughter spoke, he arranged for her to stay and sent her to the Taoist temple another day. Then, Yenzheng returned to Anha Garden and looked at Yundong, Shao Qingyuan, and Song Dejiang, who were already sitting in the room. Song Dejiang was holding by Muzi, but he was glaring at Yundong as if he had a feud with her. Yenzheng walked over and sat on the edge of the bed to look at Yihai's forehead. Her forehead was deliberately injured. In fact, Yihai's injuries were almost healed. She would be fine after resting for 2 more days. At this moment, the wound on her forehead had been wiped clean, and she looked much more refreshed. Yenzheng was relieved. Only then did he look at Song Dejiang, who still did not look too good. He hesitated for a moment before asking worriedly, "Imperial Physician Song, is there a problem? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1357, Killing 3 Birds with 1 Stone. Song Dejiang snorted. "There's nothing wrong with you. She's the one with the problem." As he spoke, he pointed at Yundong. Yundong looked innocent. "What's wrong with me? I got by Muzi myself. You still dare to say that you're doing this for by Muzi? You clearly know that I'm on good terms with Imperial Physician Shui, yet you still want me to deceive him." Song Dejiang was exasperated. "How can I face him in the future?" "Imperial Physician Song, you can't say that." Yundong's expression was even more upright as she said in all seriousness, "If it weren't for me, Imperial Physician Shui and his daughter would still be scolded by the neighbors. My plan was for you to lie, but this is a white lie. Look, Chuilan has also been proven innocent. Since I've helped her, it's not too much for me to take by Muzi as a reward, right?" Song Dejiang couldn't win against her, but she was right. He snorted and turned his head. He happened to see Yihai beside him. He did not expect Yihai to agree with him and even look at Yundong with slight envy and admiration. Actually, at first, Yihai did not know that Yundong had thought of this method. She only thought that she and Yenzheng had discussed it together. Only later did Yenzheng tell her. Although Yundong's main goal was by Muzi, her plan was to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Yihai had always stayed in the Yin residence and had never seen such an intelligent woman like Yundong. Yenzheng also noticed her gaze. Perhaps because they had a good chat yesterday, he knew more about Yihai. Previously, he wanted Yihai to learn from Nanny Qi. Nanny Qi was capable and could always influence Yihai subtly. However, he had forgotten that Nanny Qi was a servant, and Yihai was the master, but she was also a master who was not recognized by the elders of the Nye family. Therefore, Nanny Qi could not treat Yihai lightly. Instead, she was restrained and must watch her distance to her master. Now that she had met Yundong, Yenzheng felt that this was fate. Therefore, he whispered into Yihai's ear, "Do you think she's very powerful?" "Yeah." Yenzheng smiled. "She did a lot of things. He'll tell you slowly in the future." Just the fact that she had escaped to Shuana Prefecture with her family was not something ordinary people could do. But if you want to see it with your own eyes, you can chat with her more. Sister Gu is going to open a milk tea shop in the capital. You've heard of it. It's the milk tea shop that Nye Shuang mentioned to me. When the time comes, you can follow her to take a look. Is that really possible? Yundong naturally heard their conversation. Facing Yihai's expectant gaze, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, she smiled and nodded. "Of course, but in the eyes of outsiders, you're still recuperating. It's better to go out later. Coincidentally, my shop needs to be renovated. I'll bring you to take a look when it's done." Yihai's eyes lit up slightly. She was a little excited and embarrassed as she said softly, "Thank you." Yihai had grown up without any friends because of her status, and Yunling Yundong was the first. After making a deal and seeing that Yin still needed to rest, the few of them stood up and walked out. Song Dejiang held the Bai Muzi in his hand. "Leave this with me for now. I'll treat it first. I can't leave the capital now. Ask your mother to come to the capital sometime. I'll treat her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1358. Too many things in your brain. Yundong looked at Bai Muzi and finally felt happy. There was finally hope of curing her mother's illness. This was a big matter that she had always taken to heart. Now, she could finally heave a sigh of relief. Nevertheless, I'll write a letter back, but if my mother comes, my father will definitely accompany her. There are many things to do at home, so I'm afraid it'll take some time to arrange it. It's impossible to reach the capital in a short period of time. Keep it for now. When my parents come, I'll look for you. Sure. Song Dejiang put away the herb, and the few of them walked to the door. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Song Dejiang left the Nye residence first. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan left after eating at the Nye residence. Bai Muzi's matter had come to an end. Next, Yundong planned to renovate the shop. As for the matter with Marquis Huayin, Yundong also wanted a sigh. According to Song Dejiang, he did not know much about Marquis Huayin. He only knew that Marquis Huayin was indeed quite powerful in the capital 20 years ago, but the emperor 20 years ago was the late emperor. The late emperor was muddle-headed and unreasonable, especially in recent years. A few years ago, Marquis Huayin had somehow offended the late emperor. Although the late emperor had not punished him, Marquis Huayin had slowly declined in the capital. Of course, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even if it declined, it was still much better than ordinary families. Unfortunately, the descendants of Marquis Huayin in this generation didn't have much potential. They were all mediocre people who could listen to their superiors and work diligently, but they didn't have much talent to climb up. Otherwise, since they met the current emperor, as long as they had real talent, they would definitely be put in an important position. As for what happened in the Marquis Huayin's mansion, Song Dejiang did not know if any children had been lost 20 years ago. However, Song Dejiang promised that he would help them find out. From the looks of it, that was the only way. However, Yundong still felt that she should find an opportunity to go to Marquis Huayin's mansion personally, or come into contact with some madam or old madam in the mansion to obtain information. Shao Qingyuan saw her sad face and couldn't help but sigh. He pulled her over and patted her head. "Aren't you tired of having so many things in your head?" We just found Bai Muzi, and you're still busy renovating the shop. You also have to think about the Marquis Mansion's matters. You don't even give yourself time to rest. How tiring is that? Didn't we agree that there's no hurry for the Marquis Mansion's matters? Take it slow. Anyway, we're already in the capital, and they can't escape. Besides, don't you still have me? Don't you have a lot of things to do too? You still have to look for Song Dejiang tomorrow to learn medicine from him. Since Shao Qingyuan had come to the capital, it was rare for him to meet someone as skilled as Song Dejiang. Naturally, he had to learn some skills from him. Moreover, Song Dejiang liked to discuss medicine with Shao Qingyuan. He realized that Shao Qingyuan was especially smart in this aspect. Sometimes, when he went to a dead end, Shao Qingyuan would change his direction and give him ideas. Therefore, after Shao Qingyuan entered the palace, Song Dejiang refused to let him go. Even though they had only discussed for a day, both sides had gained a lot. Actually, part of the reason why Song Dejiang helped so readily this time was because of Shao Qingyuan. After all, he was the head of the Imperial Hospital. If he was exposed for doing such a thing, the consequences would be serious. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1359. Mrs. Yu. Song Dejiang had been on leave for the 2 days, so he naturally wanted to take this opportunity to continue discussing with Shao Qingyuan. Yundong knew that he liked medicine, so she could not wait to take on everything. She wanted him to focus on learning and work hard to learn all of Song Dejiang's skills. After all, this was a rare opportunity. Shao Qingyuan knew what she was thinking, and his heart instantly ached. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on her. None of my matters are as important as yours. Yundong smiled and kissed him. All right, I promise you. I'll take my time and do one thing at a time. First, Before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan pressed her down. First of all, we should have a child. The blanket was lifted. Before Yundong could hide the shock on her face, it was covered by the blanket. The sky darkened, and the house was filled with spring. Yundong woke up late the next day. Shao Qingyuan had already gone out. She could not help but rub her back. Suddenly, she felt lazy and did not want to get up. She did not want to go out. Anyway, Shao Qingyuan had told her to take it slow. He had worked so hard last night. Yundong was a little indignant. She might as well rest at home today and not go anywhere. When Tong Shuitao came in, she saw her miss lying on her back on the bed, looking at the bed curtains above her head and thinking about life. She couldn't help but be curious. Miss, what's wrong? It's fine. I'm just a little lazy and don't want to get up. Tong Shuitao immediately went to her side and asked, Then should I bring you food? Might as well. Tong Shuitao went out. Yundong put on a cloak and walked to a shelf to rinse her mouth and wash her face. After washing up, she went back to bed. It was already cold in the capital at this time of the year. It was early October, and no one knew when it would snow in the capital. Not long after, Tong Shuitao brought in hot porridge and buns. Miss, when I went out this morning, I walked around the alley. I bought these buns at the entrance of the alley. I saw that the business there was especially good. I heard that it's an old business in Yihai Alley. It's been selling buns for many years. The skin is thin and the filling is big. Yundong took it and tore open a corner. Instantly, gravy flowed out. The skin was indeed thin and the filling was big. It looked quite appetizing. Miss, is it good? Yes, it's not bad. Buy some again tomorrow. Tong Shuitao was overjoyed. Sure. Yundong ate porridge and buns at the same time. After eating and drinking her fill, she wanted to cover herself with a blanket and listen to Tong Shuitao talk about the novelty of Yihai Alley. Unexpectedly, her plan to stay in bed for the entire day was foiled. Someone knocked on the door outside. Tong Shuitao ran to open the door and came back to say that it was the sister-in-law from next door. Yundong could only ask Tong Shuitao to invite her to the central room to rest for a while. She quickly got up, dressed, and tidied herself up. When she reappeared in the central room, it had been quite a while. The sister-in-law next door was looking up at the environment of the house with a hint of envy in her eyes. Yundong had heard from Tong Shuitao that the house next door was also a triple-entry house. However, that house was left behind by their ancestors. Now, their family was 3 generations in the same house, and all 20 to 30 people lived together. The old master only had 4 sons and a daughter. In addition, he had a few daughters-in-law and grandchildren from the next generation. They did not split up. Wouldn't the entire house seem crowded? The sister-in-law in front of her was the wife of the eldest son next door. Her surname was Yu. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1360. Wenzheng. The big tree Yundong smiled and went forward. You must be sister-in-law Yu. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Sister Gu, please don't say that. I came to disturb you without telling you in advance. Please don't take offense. How come? I saw that you guys had just moved in, so I came to take a look. I wanted to come over a few days ago, but I saw that you guys went out early in the morning and looked very busy, so I didn't come. You didn't go out today, so I made some bean buns at home for you to try. Don't despise them. Mrs. Yu pushed the basket on the table forward and smiled. Yundong hurriedly smiled. How can I do that? I've troubled sister-in-law Yu. Sigh. We'll be neighbors in the future. There's no need to worry. I see that you've just arrived. If you need any help in the future, just look for us. Yundong nodded. Then I want stand on ceremony. There's no need to stand on ceremony. By the way, where are you guys from? Yundong saw that she looked like she wanted to chat and felt a little helpless. However, the other party did not have any ill intentions. She also wanted to understand the situation in Yihai Alley, so she chatted with her. We came from the Shuana Prefecture. Shuana Prefecture? That's far away. It's your first time in the capital, so you have to be more careful. People will freeze to death in another 10 days or so. You have to prepare the charcoal first, or your lives won't be easy. All right. Thank you for your reminder, sister-in-law. Mrs. Yu waved her hand. What kind of reminder is that? I was just saying. By the way, what are you guys doing in the capital? Is your man preparing to participate in the imperial examination? Yundong's mouth twitched. You think too much. It was not the time to come to the capital to participate in the imperial examination. Moreover, Hatai Alley was lively and noisy. It was not suitable for students to buy a house and live there. Yundong smiled. No, we're just here to open a small shop and do some small business. I see. Mrs. Yu nodded. She knew what to do. Then I have to tell you first. It's not easy to do business in the capital, especially opening a shop. It's best to find a backer. Otherwise, someone will find trouble, right? Yundong frowned. Mrs. Yu was right. Whether it was in Fengkai County or the Shuana Prefecture, she did have someone backing her up. Although the shop in the capital was also in partnership with Madame Dai, Nie Shuang, and the others, most of their forces were in the Shuana Prefecture. Moreover, there were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Her milk tea shop was unique. Who knew how many people would covet it? She had no foundation in the capital. If she opened her business rashly, she would easily become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of others. Yes, she had to find a backer, and one that no one dared to provoke. Yundong began to choose suitable candidates in her mind. In the end, she thought of Wenzheng. Well, he was indeed a big tree here. According to Niet Song, Wenzheng had just arrived in the capital when he was promoted to the Assistant Minister of Official Personnel Affairs by the Emperor. In the past, Wenzheng was only a small official in the Hanlan Academy. His position immediately skipped a few levels when the new emperor ascended the throne, and it shocked many people. Of course, there were also people in the royal court who were unconvinced. However, Wenzheng's name was already famous. The things he had done for the emperor in the past had been suppressed. Now that they had all been exposed, these incidents added up to more merit than many officials did in the royal court. If anyone was unconvinced, they could compete. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1361. Return gift. Moreover, some of the emperor's trusted aides actually knew Wenzheng's identity and were naturally on his side. Actually, the rank of an official was secondary. The most important thing was that the current Wenzheng was a favored minister in front of the emperor. Everyone could see how much the emperor valued him. His future was limitless. Those who were smart knew that they should prioritize befriending him. Therefore, to Yundong, Wenzheng was definitely the best candidate to be her backer. She just didn't know when he would return to the capital. Yundong thought about it and quickly suppressed everything. Only then did she continue talking with Mrs. Yu. Mrs. Yu chatted until almost noon. She only went back when it was time to cook. She carried a basket of bean buns, and Yundong asked Tong Shuidao to return the gift with the white sugar and canned food. This had always been her return gift. Mrs. Yu took a look, and her face was filled with surprise. She had never seen canned food before, but white sugar was rare in the capital. However, there were almost never gifts, especially not the first meeting gift. Not only was this thing expensive, but it was also not easy to buy. This daughter-in-law of the Shao family was really generous. Mrs. Yu walked out of the Shao family's house in a daze. Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Tong Shuitao poured her a cup of hot tea and sighed. Sister-in-law Yu is really eloquent. Yundong nodded in agreement. It was also a skill to be able to chat so well with the first time they met. However, she did know a lot from Mrs. Yu. The most important thing now was to prepare the charcoal fire, lest they wouldn't have a place to buy it when it got cold. Thus, in the afternoon, Yundong brought Tong Shuitao out. The two of them went to the shop first. Last time, because of Mother Chun, they only stayed at the door for a moment and did not have the time to take a good look at the inside. Due to Muzi's matter, she did not have the time to come over these few days. Since she was out today, she could take a look at the situation of the shop. She would draw the blueprint later so that she could find someone to renovate it. Yundong opened the door of the shop and saw someone peeking out from the shop next door. They might suspect that she was here to rent a house. Gu Yundong ignored them and strolled around the shop. Perhaps Mother Chun had planned to rent it out, so the shop was very clean. At this moment, there was only a little dust, and it did not look messy. The shop here was somewhat similar to the one in the Shuana Prefecture, but this one was bigger. Another thing was that the position of the backyard was different. It would not make much of a difference if she renovated it later. Gu Yundong looked at the shop in front of her and then at the backyard. The backyard was originally for people to live in. It was also a huge project to set it up as private rooms. As for the second floor, Gu Yundong was very satisfied after looking at it. This floor was slightly higher and had a better view. It was also as spacious as the first floor and could receive many guests. Gu Yundong rubbed her chin and walked around the shop. Finally, she went back in satisfaction. On the way back, they strolled around Hutai Alley and found a few shops with relatively fair prices. After buying things like charcoals and furnaces and heaters to ward off the cold, the two of them slowly returned home. Seeing that it was still early, Gu Yundong took out a brush and paper and began to draw the renovation plan of the shop. Actually, there was no need to think too much about it. The interior decoration was similar to the Shuana Prefecture's new tea pavilion. Gu Yundong felt that since it was a branch, it would be best if the shops were all of the same style. That way, they would have more characteristics. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1362. Carpenter Pang. Therefore, Gu Yundong quickly had some ideas in her mind. She drew quickly and steadily, and it did not take long for her to draw the rough blueprint. Then, she began to adjust and modify where she was not satisfied. After the painting was done, Shao Qingyuan happened to return. Gu Yundong quickly showed him the blueprint. How is it? Do you feel that there's anything that needs to be changed? There are even more madams and young ladies from aristocratic families in the capital. Most of them have their own circles or people whom they don't like. They care more about their status. They have clear ranks and might need too few rooms. Gu Yundong pondered for a moment. That was indeed the case. These madams of aristocratic families valued their privacy. They were still a little different from a Shuana Prefecture. There were too many high-ranking officials and nobles in the capital. Gu Yundong pointed at the blueprint. So, the second floor should also be private rooms? Yeah. Gu Yundong was about to draw another one when Shao Qingyuan pulled her over. It's late. You should draw tomorrow. Let's eat first. Okay. Gu Yundong immediately put down the brush and paper in her hand. The next day, Shao Qingyuan didn't go out again. After Song Dejiang's rest days ended, he still had to be on duty at the Imperial Hospital. Gu Yundong sat in her room and started to paint again on the design of the second floor. In the afternoon, she went to look for a carpenter with Shao Qingyuan. She had been familiar with Uncle Feng. Now that she had to find an unfamiliar carpenter, she would probably have to explain what she had drawn again. The carpenter they found was introduced by Cong. His surname was Pang, and it was said that his craftsmanship was very good. He was also reliable and had a fair price. When Gu Yundong and the other man went over, Carpenter Pang was making a box cage. There's a lot of demand for carpenters these days, so there were also many people in this industry. Naturally, the competition was equally intense. According to Niet Song, Carpenter Pang's business was mediocre. He took on the work of his neighbors because he worked slowly and had a stubborn temper. One of his two disciples was mute, and the other was a taciturn person. But it had to be said that there was a reason for slow work to produce fine work. Carpenter Pang was slow because he was meticulous. If there was anything wrong, he would rather restart the work. He was very responsible when doing things. Even if you urged him to hurry, he would not hand it over casually. In Gu Yundong's opinion, this should be considered Carpenter Pang's obsessive-compulsive disorder. Therefore, no one came to look for him for urgent work. In addition, there were some competitors who did not like Carpenter Pang and ruined his reputation outside. He and his two disciples were people who worked hard and did not know how to explain. As time passed, business naturally decreased. Fortunately, his neighbors knew his personality and craftsmanship. Most of them were relieved to leave it to him. Carpenter Pang's current work was also recommended by his old clients. For example, Gu Yundong. Song knew him because when he got married previously, he had seen an exquisite makeup box from Yinya. He knew that aunt who had gotten someone to get Carpenter Pang to make it a few years ago. After using it for a few years, the makeup box was still very sturdy and beautiful. Later on, Song also asked Carpenter Pang to make a few things. They were all very good. This time, Yundong wanted to renovate the shop, so he directly introduced him to her. Carpenter Pang was in his 30s and was not good with words. When he saw Yundong and Shao Qingyuan enter, he quickly stood up and let them sit. Then, that was it. He didn't want to pour them a glass of water. He turned around and continued to make his box. Yundong had heard that he had gotten married a few years ago. Later, his wife had passed away and he did not even have a child. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1363. Slow work. It was not that no one had tried to matchmake him all these years, but when they heard that his two disciples had no parents and had to rely on him to raise them, they all retreated. Moreover, Carpenter Pang did not seem to be interested in getting married and having children, so he had been single until now. However, to him, his two disciples were equivalent to his biological sons. Fortunately, although his two disciples were also taciturn, they still knew how to treat their guests. They hurriedly poured water for them and continued to stand at the side to help Carpenter Pang. Yundong watched from the side for a moment and knew that Carpenter Pang was indeed the kind of person who was neither arrogant nor rash. He was very stable. Yundong explained the purpose of her visit. I want to renovate a shop. It has 2 floors and a courtyard at the back. It's at Jinlan Street. The shop is a little big, so it might take some time. I wonder if Master Pang can take on this job. Carpenter Pang was stunned for a moment. A shop? And it was a 2-story one? Before he could say anything, the 2 disciples behind him looked at Yundong and Shao Qingyuan excitedly. This was a big job. If they did it well, the payment this time should not be low. Actually, they had very little work to do now, especially when the weather was cold. Their business was even less. When the box in their master's hand was ready, they would have nothing to do. They did not expect such a huge job to suddenly come. How could they not be excited? His 2 disciples looked at Carpenter Pang expectantly. Carpenter Pang quickly came back to his senses. His eyes were also slightly glowing, and he rubbed his hands uncomfortably. After pausing for a moment, he still reminded them in advance. I can accept the job, but it'll tell you the truth. I work slowly, especially for such a big shop. I have to take a look first and discuss with you what's appropriate. I can't deliver work in a short period of time. It doesn't matter. As long as the work is done well, it can take as long as needed. If it's convenient for Master Pang, I can take you to see the shop now. I've already drawn out how to renovate the shop. We can sit down and talk about it later. Carpenter Pang paused and glanced at the box cage in his hand. This box was actually already done. It could be handed over after a little polishing. He would continue working when he came back tonight. He could send it to the client tomorrow morning. Hence, he stood up. All right. We'll go take a look at the shop now. Carpenter Pang got up, took off his apron, and went inside to wash his hands and face. He then followed Yundong out. His 2 disciples hurriedly followed. On the way, Carpenter Pang learned from Yundong that they had been introduced by Kong. Carpenter Pang still had some impression of Kong. He was quite happy and grateful. When he arrived at Jinlan Street and saw the 2-story shop, Carpenter Pang realized that it was even bigger than he had imagined. He brought his 2 disciples around and circled it twice before returning to the shop in front. When he saw Yundong and Shao Qingyuan talking, he quickly went forward excitedly. Young Master Shao, Madam Shao, will take on this job. Yundong nodded and asked him to sit. Then, she took out the blueprint. In that case, they'll tell Master Pang about the situation of the shop. Okay, go ahead. My shop will sell milk tea. It's similar to a tea house, but it's different from ordinary tea houses. My tea house is specially used to receive women, so the decorations inside are different from other shops. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1364. accepting the job specializing in receiving women. This was the first time Carpenter Pang had heard of this. He felt that it was very novel. Yundong pointed at the blueprint. This is what the interior of the shop looks like. Master Pang, take a look. As expected, Carpenter Pang lowered his head and his eyes immediately lit up. This blueprint was too clear. Almost at first glance, he could imagine what the shop would become in the future. Carpenter Pang had also renovated shops in the past. Most of the time, it was the client who told him where to add cabinets and boxes. No one had ever drawn such a detailed blueprint to tell him the final result. It was just that there were some things that he could not understand, but Yundong would explain. There were even some data on it. Carpenter Pang looked at the blueprint lovingly. Even his two disciples standing behind him could not help but swallow their saliva. After introducing the renovations to the shop in front and the courtyard at the back, it was finally time for the situation on the second floor. Carpenter Pang frowned slightly when he saw the second floor. Yundong knew how to draw, but she did not know much about architectural design. In the past, when she was building a house, Feng Danning would tell her how to modify it. He would tell her which parts were unreasonable and what could not be done, or if the data was too idealistic. She would slowly modify what problems might arise. Yundong had to listen to Carpenter Pang's professional opinion. As expected, Carpenter Pang shook his head at some places on the second floor. To make the second floor look like private rooms, the project was a little big. Many places had to be demolished and rebuilt, so Yundong's blueprint was not very accurate. There was no other way. Yundong handed the blueprint to Carpenter Pang. How about this? It'll tell you how many rooms I want on the second floor and how the layout is. Master Pang, you could decide for yourself after taking the measurements. How about that? Carpenter Pang was stunned. Is that appropriate? Yes, of course. Carpenter Pang looked at Shao Qingyuan again. After all, in their eyes, Shao Qingyuan was the head of the family. Shao Qingyuan nodded. Listen to her. Carpenter Pang was relieved. Yundong and Carpenter Pang talked about some details. Both parties signed a contract and confirmed that Master Pang would start work the next day. After Yundong paid the deposit and the key to the shop, the group left. Now that the renovation was done, the next step was to recruit people. This gave Yundong a headache. In the Shuana Prefecture, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang had taken care of recruitment matters. She had only arranged for 2 people. Now that she was in the capital, she was really unfamiliar with the place. Where could she recruit people? Especially since the milk tea shop was a novel business, she was worried about hiring ordinary people to work in the shop. It seemed that she could only buy some. The others were fine. They could be bought for training and employment. It was just that the shopkeeper was not easy to find. Yundong decided to ask for Madame Guest's opinion when she went to the Qin residence tomorrow. A few days ago, the Qin family closed their doors and refused guests, so Yundong did not disturb them for the time being. Yesterday, she asked Tong Shuidao to send a card to the Qin family to confirm that she would come tomorrow. Yundong did not know much about the rules of the wealthy families in the capital. It was only when she mentioned it to Yenya 2 days ago that she remembered that she should send the card first so that she would not have missed it. Shao Qingyuan knew that she was going to the Qin residence, so he turned around and asked her, "Shall I go with you tomorrow?" "No need. Qin Wenzheng isn't back yet. You'll just sit there and do nothing even if you go. How boring would that be?" Shao Qingyuan thought about it and agreed, so he didn't mention it again. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1365. I want to shop the next morning. Yundong brought Tong Shuitao directly to the Qin residence. Unexpectedly, not long after they left, Carpenter Pang's disciple called Pang Shan hurriedly ran over and knocked on the door. Shao Qingyuan was reading a medical book. Song Dejiang had given it to him the day before yesterday and asked him to read it first before discussing it with him. Shao Qingyuan was very interested in this medical book. Hearing the knock on the door, Shaoan immediately went to open it. Pang Shan, who was at the door, staggered and almost fell in. Shaoan quickly supported him and asked, "Why are you so flustered? What happened?" Pang Shan swallowed his dry throat and said in a panic, Someone someone came to the shop to cause trouble. Master is not allowed to work. Shao frowned and quickly brought him to look for Shao Qingyuan. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he narrowed his eyes slightly, put down the medical book, and walked towards the door. Let's go to the shop to take a look. Shao Wen and Pang Shan hurriedly followed. Fortunately, they were not too far from Jinlan Street and arrived not long after. At this moment, there were already a few people poking their heads out and pointing at the entrance of 68 Jinlan Street. At this moment, there were two groups of people confronting each other in the shop. On one side was Master Pang and his disciple, and on the other side, it looked like they were deliberately looking for trouble with 5 or 6 people. The leader was dressed well, like a young master from a rich family. Behind him were his servants. At this moment, this young master-like person sized up Carpenter Pang from head to toe. His eyes were filled with disdain as he said condescendingly, "I'll say it again. I have bought this shop. I'll naturally get someone to repair it later. You guys should leave." Carpenter Pang's face turned red. He was not good with words to begin with, and this disciple beside him was mute. However, he was the one who signed the contract. How could he leave so easily? "Young Master Tang, I've already discussed it with the boss. I don't care if you've discussed it or not. Anyway, I'll leave my words here. If you continue to work here, I won't be polite to you. Think about it yourself. Should you leave now, or should I get someone to throw you out?" Young Master Tang was also very unhappy. He had long taken a fancy to this shop. However, he did not expect that he would act too late. Just a day later, the shop was bought by a woman surnamed Nia. He had asked around. That woman surnamed Nia was not from the capital. Her family was in Shuana Prefecture, and she was rich. That was why she came to the capital to buy a shop. Her only backer in the capital was her brother, Nia Tsong, who was a 7th grade official. It was just a 7th rank official. Young Master Tang didn't fancy him. After all, he wasn't someone without a backer. He even felt that it was the Nia family's honor that he had taken a fancy to this shop. Therefore, young Master Tang came to look for her twice and said that he wanted to buy it. Although he had lowered the price, he was not bullying others, right? However, that woman surnamed Nia did not agree. Young Master Tang felt that she did not know what was good for her and wanted to use other methods. But at this moment, that woman actually left behind this shop and ran back to the Shuana Prefecture. Young Master Tang thought that Nia Shuang was afraid of offending him, but she didn't want to sell the shop, so she simply escaped reality. As a result, this shop had been empty. Young Master Tang's temper even rose. "If you have the ability, just leave it here. They'll keep an eye on you and see when you will return to open the shop. If you dare to open the shop, I will dare to come and find trouble. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1366. 100,000 Taels. Young Master Tang did not look for Niet Song and just watched over the shop for half a year. Unexpectedly, a servant had come to report some time ago that a mother of the Yin family was planning to rent out the shop. However, after a day, she said that she was not renting anymore. Young Master Tang was confused when the shop opened. A carpenter began to repair the shop. They were clearly planning to do business. Could it be that the woman surnamed Nia had returned? All right, she had finally stopped hiding after half a year. Young Master Tang led his men over. Unexpectedly, when he asked, Carpenter Pang said that the owner of the shop was a couple. The male owner's surname was Shao, and he did not know any woman with the surname Nia. Young Master Tang felt that Nia Shuang might have secretly sold the shop. All right, since she wanted to sell it, why didn't she sell it to him back then? Just as he was thinking, there was suddenly a commotion outside. 3 men walked in one after another. Carpenter Pang turned around and saw that it was Shao Qingyuan. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded and looked at young Master Tang. Young Master Tang also looked at him. He felt that the other party's gaze was so cold that he could not help but take a step back. The servant behind him hurriedly supported him and asked softly, "Young Master, are you cold? Get lost. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak." Young Master Tang turned around and hit his head. Then, He secretly took 2 deep breaths and looked at Shao Qingyuan again, as if the person who had retreated just now was not him. He sized up Shao Qingyuan. Yes, he didn't know him. Are you the owner of this shop? Who are you? Shao Qingyuan also looked at him. My surname is Tang. Tang Qijing. Young Master Tang raised his chin slightly. I've never seen you before. You're not from the capital, right? I'm not. Tang Qijing was instantly relieved. When he saw the murderous aura on this person just now, his heart was beating like a drum. He pointed at the shop and said, I'll buy this shop. Name a price. Shao Qingyuan admired his wife. Why was it that every time she took a fancy to a shop, someone wanted to snatch it? Oh, that's not right. Her wife did not buy this shop. So this person was provoked by Nie Shuang? Shao Qingyuan saw his high and mighty appearance and thought that he must have something to rely on. But 100,000 taels, he said slowly. Tang Qijing was stunned and almost choked on his own saliva. How much did you say? 100,000 taels, Shao Qingyuan repeated. If you pay 100,000 taels, this shop will be yours. Have you gone crazy from poverty? 100,000 taels? It was more than enough to buy 10 or 20 shops. He actually asked for an exorbitant price. Was he toying with him? When others heard the conversation at the door, someone quickly laughed. After being glared at by the servants behind Tang Qijing, those people immediately lowered their heads and covered their mouths. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Tang Qijing. I've been a little poor recently. My family bought a new house and some assets, so I'm a little tight on money. So I didn't even have time to buy servants. The price of this shop is 100,000 taels. It should be enough. Tang Qijing. F***CKU. He was so angry that he laughed. Do you think that's possible? Who the hell will buy your shop for 100,000 taels? Since you think it's impossible, why are you still here? Shao Qingyuan's face turned cold. Tang Qijing felt that the other party was provoking him and did not take him seriously at all. Okay. You're messing with me. He pointed at him and trembled with anger. He immediately said to the servants behind him, Smash this place. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1367. Could he be the Shao Qingyuan? The servants were about to make a move. Don't, you can't smash it. Carpenter Pang hurriedly wanted to make a move. Although they had just started work, they had brought a lot of wood over. It would be a loss to smash it. However, how could the servants of the Tang family listen to him? One of them kicked a stool at the side. However, just as he was about to walk forward, someone suddenly blocked his way. Shao suddenly grabbed his hand, turned around, and flipped forward. This person fell to the ground. Seeing this, the servants of the Tang family instantly surrounded him. The 4 of them fought against Shao when alone, but they actually did not have the upper hand. Tang Qijing instantly felt that things were a little tricky. He regretted bringing those servants along today. He should have brought the 2 skilled ones along. Now that the 4 of them could not even beat one person, if they lost later, where would he put his face? Tang Qijing's eyes darted to Shao Qingyuan's face. Then, he realized that this murderous aura and bulging muscles might be stronger. He immediately gave up. A wise man submits to circumstances. He understood. Hence, Tang Qijing shouted, Stop, come back. The 4 of them already felt that they were going to lose. When they heard this order, they retreated without a word. One of them did not retreat in time and was kicked down by Shaowen. He quickly got up and continued to run to Tang Qijing's side. Shaowen was speechless. He also silently returned behind Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing exhaled and pointed at Shao Qingyuan. All right, you're quite bold. If you have the ability, tell me your name. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. Was he stupid? What? You don't have balls? You don't even dare to say your name. Are you afraid that he'll take revenge on you later? At this moment, even though he knew that it was a provocation, Shao Qingyuan still said, Shao Qingyuan. All right, Shao Qingyuan, right? Just you wait. Then, Tang Qijing hurriedly led the few of them to the door. However, not long after he walked out, he suddenly stopped and frowned. He turned around and asked, What did he say his name was just now? Shao Qingyuan. The servant behind him also reacted. Young master, could he be that Shao Qingyuan? Tang Qijing shook his head. How can it be so coincidental? It must be someone with the same name. But what if? Didn't they say that Shao Qingyuan is a kind person who helps the world? Which kind person doesn't look benevolent? Is he benevolent? The servant thought for a moment and felt that what the young master said made sense. However, he quickly shook his head and still felt that it was a little suspicious. But young master, Shao Qingyuan is from Shuana Prefecture, and the owner of this shop is also from Shuana Prefecture. Isn't this a little too coincidental? Moreover, his age matches. Tang Kaijing's expression was a little dark. If it was really Shao Qingyuan, it did not seem appropriate for him to find fault with him. Young master, why don't we give up on this shop? Back then, you wanted to buy this shop to destroy the Chun family shop opposite. Isn't the Chun family shop opposite not doing much business now without you doing anything? Tang Qijing thought about it and felt that it made sense. He looked at the servant behind him in agreement. You're right. I'm busy. That shop is no longer worth my attention. Moreover, I don't think the feng shui of this street is good. Look at the Qin family. They've only been open for half a year, and they're already in this state. Wouldn't I be at a disadvantage if I buy it? Of course, of course. The servant nodded repeatedly. However, after taking a few steps, he asked, Young master, should we tell the royal prince that Shao Qingyuan came to the capital? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1368. Meeting Madame Gu again. Tang Qijing frowned. The royal prince, Yixilan, was the descendant of an aristocratic family who had said that he had by Muzi and asked Shao Qingyuan to be his servant for a year. He thought for a moment and shook his head. Forget it. We're not sure if this person is that Shao Qingyuan. If we make a mistake later, the young royal prince will think that I tricked him and skin me alive. Besides, he was not familiar with the royal prince. It was better not to get involved in the matter between that man and Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing looked back at the shop and left in a hurry with his subordinates. Only when they were far away did Shao Qingyuan let Carpenter Pang continue. Carpenter Pang was a little worried and asked him, Will young Master Tang come again? No. That Tang guy came to find trouble and looked like he was showing off. However, when he saw that he could not take advantage of the situation, he immediately left. Although he was a little cowardly, it was obvious that he was not a rash person. He would probably figure out the stranger's identity before taking action. As for after the investigation, he probably wouldn't come again. However, the others didn't know that the shopkeeper of the shop next door quickly came over and said to Shao Qing, Young Master, do you know who young Master Tang was just now? Who is it? Shao Qingyuan really didn't know him. That person said mysteriously, his mother is the cousin of Marquis Huayin and has Marquis Huayin backing her. If you hit his people directly, he will definitely settle scores with you later. Marquis Huayin? Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Tang Qijing to be related to Marquis Huayin. Shao Qingyuan fell silent for a moment. The shopkeeper who spoke saw his worried expression and immediately shook his head. He didn't say anything else and turned around to leave. Shaowen walked to Shao Qingyuan's side and asked in a low voice, Young master, will everything be all right? It's fine. Shao Qingyuan comforted Carpenter Pang and the other two. He told them to do whatever they had to and not worry about anything else. Then he brought Shaowen back to his house in Hitai Alley. Shaowen saw that his young master did not seem to care at all. He picked up the medical book again and read it. At this moment, Gu Yundong had already entered the Qin residence. Madame Gu was very happy to see her. She pulled her and said, You've been in the capital for a few days. Why are you only here now? The guests I rejected at the door are others. I couldn't wait to welcome you. As he spoke, a small figure ran over from outside. Qin Anning rushed into Gu Yundong's arms eagerly. Sister Gu, I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you so much. Has Anning grown taller? Grinning, Qin Anning spun around in front of her and asked, Don't I look prettier too? Yes, you look even better. When Madame Gu heard this, she could not help but hold her forehead. How can you be so thick-skinned? Qin Anning pouted and said to Gu Yundong, Sister Gu, the capital is so boring. I want to go back to Fengkai County. I think you're used to being wild. Previously, in Fengkai County, Wenzheng had taken in many students. Although there was a difference between men and women, these people were still fellow disciples to Anning. Occasionally, they would bring her to play and take good care of her. Wenzheng wouldn't restrain her either. After she went to Yongfu village, she couldn't even stay in the house and ran out every other day. However, it was different in the capital, especially since Wenzheng's current identity was an important minister in the court. Anning's every move was seen by others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1369. Your Shao Qingyuan is enough. Madame Go wanted Anning to learn some rules and etiquette, but Wenzheng did not care. He doted on his daughter very much and only said that everything was fine as long as she was happy. There was no need to be so rigid like the other women from aristocratic families. It was tiring to look at them. However, Madame Go felt that if she did not teach Anning now, she would definitely be criticized in the future. What if Anning could not stand those rumors at that time, and her reputation was ruined? Would Anning be happy then? Madame Go and Wenzheng had a disagreement over their daughter's education, but they could not determine who was right and who was wrong. Madame Go only complained to Yundong. She would not spout nonsense in front of others. Yundong did not know what to do. She did not have any children. Her younger siblings were all raised independently. Moreover, their environment and status were different, so she could not give any suggestions. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the lively little girl in front of her. She smiled and said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to return to Fengkai County in a short period of time." Anning sighed and said worriedly like a little adult, "Things don't go well in this world. It's really too difficult for me." Uffed. Yundong was amused. Seeing her, Yundong could not help but think of the children at home. She had already written a letter and sent a pigeon back. If her parents came to the capital, Kiki would probably follow them. However, Yinshu and Yuanji had to study, so they might not come. Madame Go pointed at Anning. "All right, I'll talk to your sister Gu. Go play first." Oh, Anning could not bear to part with Yundong. However, although she was lively and active, she was also a sensible person. Knowing that they had serious matters to discuss, she bid them farewell and returned to her courtyard. The Qin family's house had 5 courtyards. Wenzheng had made so many contributions to the imperial court. As soon as he arrived, the emperor of the capital gave him a residence, and it was an especially good location. Yundong had just walked over and realized that besides the few people they had brought from Fengkai County, they had bought a few more families of servants. They were all quietly doing their jobs and tidying up the huge mansion. Yundong was so envious that her eyes turned red. Why was it so difficult for her to buy a 3-yard house? She sighed in grief and indignation before talking about opening her shop. "Last time, Shuang bought a shop. I came over this time to renovate it. When the time comes, I will choose a good day to open it." Madame Guest's interest was immediately piqued. Milk tea shop, new tea pavilion. She had been to the new tea pavilion in the Shuanha prefecture, but only once. After all, her family was in Fengkai County, so it was impossible for her to often go to the Shuanha prefecture to drink milk tea. However, after that one visit, Madame Gu started to miss it. Now that she heard that the capital was also going to have it, she was immediately a little excited. Seeing this, Yundong immediately smiled at her. "Yes, it's a milk tea shop. Are you interested in cooperation?" Seeing her ulterior motive, Madame Gu could not help but laugh. "You already have 3 bosses. You have money and ability. Why do you still need me to cooperate?" "Of course I do," Yundong said matter-of-factly. "I need your identity. If others knew that Madame Qin is a partner of this shop, who would dare to cause trouble?" Madame Gu was stunned for a moment before she smiled. "Why do you need my identity? Your Shao Qingyuan is enough, right? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1370. Shao Qingyuan's reputation. Yundong was confused. "Brother Shao." Seeing her like this, Madame Gu suddenly understood. It seems that you still don't know your Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital. Yundong really did not know. She subconsciously straightened her back and hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what happened? What happened to my brother Shao's reputation?" Mrs. Gu coughed lightly and took a sip of water before slowly talking about some things she had heard not long ago. Very few people had seen Shao Qingyuan, but most people in the capital, especially the influential families, knew this name. The cowpox vaccination method was a very great achievement. To a country where many people died every year because of smallpox, this was an invention that transcended eras. Whether it was the emperor or others who were born in this dynasty and witnessed it with their own eyes, it was a very deep mark in history. In fact, it would have been fine if that was all. There were countless achievements in this world, and not everyone would be so famous. Most of them became famous after death and were only remembered by the world. However, this matter had been specially promoted by the emperor. Shao Qingyuan, a country bumpkin who was not even a doctor, actually dared to personally inoculate the prince. This courage, boldness, and fearlessness of death really impressed some people. The emperor wanted to promote this method and establish his prestige for the prince. He wanted his name to go down in history, so he secretly got someone to write a few poems to praise this matter. As the greatest contributor, Shao Qingyuan naturally could not avoid such publicity. Moreover, because of his identity, he attracted the resonance and admiration of many citizens. Look, an ordinary person like him had left his name in history because of this matter. The emperor had placed him in an important position, and even the prince was grateful to him. If they worked hard, they might have such achievements in the future, right? Then some scholars began to glorify him. Some tea houses wrote books about his deeds, and some wanted to write biographies about him for future generations to read. Yundong had sweat when she heard that. She suddenly thought of her publicity in the Shuana prefecture. It was really similar, but she really didn't expect Shao Qingyuan's reputation in the capital to be like this. Madame Gu smiled and said, "You know now, right? If others know that the shop belongs to Shao Qingyuan, who invented the cowpox vaccination method, who do you think will dare to come and find trouble with you? Although your husband doesn't have any power, he has a reputation. Whoever dares to find trouble with your shop will probably be scolded as ungrateful. There are so many aristocratic families and nobles in the capital. Most of them care about their reputation. Who would carry such a blame? At least for the time being, no one would go and get into trouble. As for when Shao Qingyuan's deeds slowly faded in the future, would they still dare to?" Madame Gu felt that with Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong's abilities, they would have grown up. Anyone who came to find trouble with them would be asking for trouble. Gu Yundong could not help but want to laugh. Should she be grateful to the emperor? If he hadn't worked so hard to promote and add fuel to the fire, wouldn't have had such an effect. She thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "Brother Shao will be recorded in history. What about me? I made the white sugar. It's very popular in the capital now. It's very rare. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1371. A village woman, surnamed Gu Yundong, was a little excited at the thought of it. Being a historical celebrity was so exciting. However, Madame Gu laughed dryly and lowered her head slightly to take a sip of tea. After a while, she said, "Perhaps there will be records. A Gu woman in a village in Fengkai County?" Gu Yundong was speechless. Could a historian be a good person? Was a woman not worthy of having a name? Gu Yundong was not in a good mood. She took a big sip of tea in frustration. However, she also knew that the world was like this now. There might not even be the word Gu. Unless you were especially famous, even a noble daughter of the royal family and the empress of a country would only have a title and a surname, let alone a commoner like her. Forget it. Gu Yundong did not care much about leaving her name in history. She just wanted to live well now. Now that she knew about Shao Qingyuan, she had an idea. "Nevertheless, I still want to work with you." Madame Gu was a little surprised. "Why? Brother Shao's reputation will prevent us from trouble, but the milk tea shop is targeted at rich madams and young ladies. Someone has to take the lead." These people once been to my milk tea shop for Brother Shao. But with you around, as the assistant minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs and the wife of the Emperor's favorite minister, you will definitely attract many customers. Madame Gu was enlightened. You're asking me to help you promote it. Actually, this is also one reason. There's another reason. I've discussed it with Madame Dai in Yeshuang. We'll definitely open shops in other prefectural cities in the future. However, our energy is limited after all. It's impossible for us to have connections in every prefectural city. Therefore, in the future, we'll find a suitable person to cooperate with when we open shops in any prefectural city. Gu Yundong suddenly had this idea after seeing Duanwan in Wanqing Prefecture. However, at that time, she only thought of working with Duanwan in Wanqing Prefecture and did not think about the capital. It was Madame Dai who suggested it when she sent the letter back to them. Their shop was different from ordinary shops. New Tea Pavilion targeted women, rich women. However, such a client group needed someone to take the lead, especially someone with a certain status. Madame Dai and the others had such an effect in the Shuana Prefecture, but they could not do it elsewhere. It was impossible for them to find a capable shopkeeper like others who opened shops. Even if a shop opened by an unknown foreigner was novel and well advertised, these madams and young ladies might not buy it. On the other hand, some women in the market would come in to take a look out of curiosity, but this way their target group would be wrong. New Tea Pavilion didn't need everyone in the prefectural city to know, but it needed everyone in a certain circle to know. The Shuana Prefecture had leaders like Madame Dai in Yeshuang, which was why it was so popular. The Wanqing Prefecture had Duanwan. Although she was not the daughter of an official, she also interacted with the daughters of officials. The Duan family's reputation in the Wanqing Prefecture was enough. In the capital, Gu Yundong felt that the Gu family was very good. Gu Yundong did not need the Gu family to do anything. It was just a name. She would give the shop in the capital a monthly boost. It was mutually beneficial. Because of this, Madame Dave and Nie Shuang felt that they could compress their shares. After all, they were only providing money. They could not help with anything else. When Madame Gu heard her thoughts, she was a little tempted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1372. You came at the right time. As someone who had seen the Shuana Prefecture milk tea shop popular with her own eyes, Madame Gu knew that once the fire in the capital was lit, the effect would definitely be doubled. She had not been in the capital for long. Wenzheng had bought a few shops in the capital a long time ago, and her family did not lack money now. But who would complain about having too much money? She still had a daughter now. Looking at Anning, she did not know what kind of person she would marry in the future. As her mother, she naturally had to prepare more dowry for her. When the girl was married, she didn't need to panic when she had money. After hesitating for a moment, Madame Gu could not help but nod. Gu Yundong immediately signed a contract with her. Although they were on good terms, even brothers had to settle accounts clearly. With the contract, if Qin Wenzheng did not agree in the future, it would not be good to go back on his word, right? Gu Yundong happily put away the contract. Madame Gu also happily put the contract into a box and locked it. Then, the two of them began to discuss the opening of the shop. Before the shop opens, they'll send an invitation to the madams and young ladies in the capital to our residence as guests. We've been in the capital for so long, but we've never invited guests. When the time comes, take out some new things like milk tea, double-skim milk, fried chicken, and pastries for everyone to try. These people will definitely like them. Gu Yundong thought so too. This was a rare opportunity for publicity. At the mention of the banquet, Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "Then can you do me a favor and invite the Madame and Miss of Marquis Huayin's family?" Marquis Huayin's family? Madame Gu said, "Who do you want to see in Marquis Huayin's family?" Yes. Gu Yundong did not hide it. Brother Shao's background might be related to Marquis Huayin. Madame Gu was surprised. Of course, she knew that Shao Qingyuan's background was still a mystery. Previously, Qin Wenzheng had told her that they had suspected the Tao family. Later, they confirmed that the third young master of the Tao family was not Shao Qingyuan, and there were no more clues. Wenzheng had also helped to keep an eye out, but they did not expect it to be related to Marquis Huayin in the capital. Yes, the surname of Marquis Huayin was Shao. Madame Gu hurriedly said, "It's naturally not a problem for me to invite Marquis Huayin's family. However, if you want to know Shao Qingyuan's background, I'm afraid it won't work." You don't know, but Marquis Huayin's family has been keeping a low profile in recent years and doesn't like to stand out. In addition, Marquis Huayin is now mediocre. Although he has the title of Marquis, he has received an idle position and doesn't have any real power in his hands. His younger brother is the same. There are two smart people in the younger generation, but they're only elementary scholars now. Therefore, the old madam and the marquis' wife don't like to go out. However, the heir apparent's wife likes fun. If we invite them to a banquet, the people who go out will probably be from the heir apparent's generation. The younger generation was only a few years older than Yundong. It was impossible for them to know about Shao Qingyuan's background 20 years ago. Even if they came, she would not be able to find out anything. Although the daughter-in-law of Marquis Huayin was eloquent, she had only married into the Marquis mansion for 6 to 7 years. Yundong frowned slightly. It made sense. Although the Qin family was currently popular, the Qin family did not have an old madam. It was impossible for other families with higher seniority to come over. Seeing her conflicted expression, Madame Gu smiled and said, "But you came at the right time. Although we can't invite the old madam and the others of Marquis Huayin over, we can go to the Marquis mansion." Yundong's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, "What do you mean? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1373. Person drenched in sweat. Madame Gu smiled and said, "Previously, I received an invitation from the Marquis mansion saying that the plum blossoms in the backyard of Marquis Huayin's family had bloomed and invited everyone to admire the flowers. Originally, I thought that I wasn't familiar with them and wanted to reject them. Now that you want to go to the Marquis mansion, this is an opportunity. Flowers could be admired anytime. They were just looking for an opportunity to hold a banquet." In the short time that Madame Gu had been in the capital, many ladies from aristocratic families had held banquets. She had received countless invitations, and Madame Gu had only gone twice. Marquis Huayin's family's heir's wife was relatively late. It was really because the old madam and the others didn't like this kind of liveliness, but they still had to socialize. Moreover, Marquis Huayin's family had been glorious in the early years, so their plum blossom forest was really big and beautiful. There were indeed many madams and young ladies who went for the beautiful scenery. Yundong immediately smiled. What a coincidence. When is the date? 2 days later. 2 days later, Yundong's eyes lit up. All right, I'll go. Then, Madame Gu gave Yundong some instructions and told her about the situation in Marquis Huayin's residence. She asked her to stay for a meal before sending her out. Yundong only realized something after leaving the Qin residence and getting into the carriage. She had forgotten to ask the Gu family if they had a candidate for the female shopkeeper. However, after thinking about it, she decided to forget it. In any case, they would meet again in 2 days. When the time came, it would be the same if she asked. When she returned home, she saw Shao Qingyuan leaning against the recliner reading a book. When Shaoan was not around, Yundong sent Tong Shuitao away. She walked over and laid on him. She hugged his waist and said, "I heard a lot about you when I went to the Qin family today." Shao Qingyuan quickly hugged her to prevent her from falling. When he heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "Me? What is it? So you're so famous in the capital. Your reputation seems to be very useful." Shao Qingyuan put down his book and propped himself up slightly. He carried her and sat on his lap. "It's all untrue. Outsiders say I have a kind face." Yundong burst out laughing. She held his face and looked left and right. After a while, she nodded. "You do look kind." Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes, pressed her head down, and kissed her. This girl was very bad. She even dared to tease him. Yundong was overjoyed. She leaned into his arms and talked. She told them about her cooperation with Madame Gu in the Qin residence and also about going to Marquis Huayin's residence in 2 days. Speaking of Marquis Huayin's family, Shao Qingyuan was silent for a moment. He thought of Tang Qijing, whom he had met in the shop today. This person's mother seemed to be the cousin of Marquis Huayin. Tang Qijing. Hearing this name, Gu Yundong nodded, indicating that she would remember it. Shao Qingyuan looked at her and said, "He'll go with you in 2 days and wait for you outside the mansion." Unfortunately, only women were invited. Gu Yundong smiled and pinched his face. "Are you worried?" "Yeah." "All right, then wait for me outside." If there were any clues, she could tell him immediately. After all, it was about his background. She hoped that she would gain something from this trip to the Marquis mansion. Gu Yundong wanted Shao Qingyuan to reunite with his family as soon as possible. 2 days later, Gu Yundong and the others took a carriage to the Qin residence early in the morning. Then, they met up with Madame Gu and headed to Marquis Huayin's residence. However, not long after they left, a carriage hurriedly entered Hitai Alley and stopped in front of the Shao family's house not long after. Then, the coachman turned around and helped the sweating person out of the carriage. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Ads by PubRev Chapter 1374. Something urgent. After the people in the carriage got out, the coachman hurriedly went forward and knocked on the door. Instead, after knocking for a long time, there was no response. The coachman turned around and looked at the person behind him. Dejiang frowned when he heard someone open the door of the house next door. Mrs. Yu poked her head out. When she saw them, she hurriedly said, "Are you looking for the Shao family? They're not around." The couple went out in a carriage early in the morning. When Dejiang heard this, he quickly turned around and asked her, "Do you know where they went?" Mrs. Yu shook her head. "I'm not sure about that. Is there something urgent? Leave your name. When they come back, I'll help you tell them." "My surname is Song. They'll know once you tell them. I do have something urgent to attend to. If they come back, please help me pass on a message." Mrs. Yu waved her hand. "It's no trouble at all." Dejiang thanked her again before wiping his sweat and hurriedly getting into the carriage. He glanced at the Shao family's gate and said to the coachman, "Let's go to the shop on Jinlan Street to take a look." The coachman quickly changed direction and went straight to 68 Jinlan Street. Unfortunately, when Dejiang stood in the shop, he only saw the busy Carpenter Pang and the other two. Carpenter Pang said that Shao Qingyuan and his wife had not come today. Dejiang was a little frustrated. When the coachman saw this, he quickly helped him up. "Master, we don't have time to look for them. If we don't go back, we might." Dejiang exhaled, and something in his eyes slowly became firm. He gritted his teeth and lowered the curtain of the carriage. He instructed the coachman, "Let's go back to the residence. At most, he'll apologize to them when they come back." The coachman nodded and drove the carriage even faster. Soon, they returned to the Song family. At this moment, Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong had no idea that Dejiang was looking for them anxiously. They had already followed Madame Gu to the door of Marquis Huayin's family. Gu Yundong glanced at the door, turned around, and said to Shao Qingyuan, who was sitting in the carriage, "He'll go in first." "Okay, be careful. If you see anything wrong, come out." Gu Yundong laughed. "I'm just going to admire the flowers. Why do you make it seem like I'm going to the battlefield?" "Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself." Shao Qingyuan held her hand. "He'll wait for you outside." After Gu Yundong got off the carriage, Shao Qingyuan nodded at Madame Gu. "Sorry to trouble you." It was not until Madame Gu led Gu Yundong and Anning into the residence that Shao Qingyuan sat back in the carriage. This was the main gate of the Marquis mansion, so it was not appropriate for the carriage to stop here and wait. Shao Qingyuan looked around and realized that there were also some official residences near the Marquis mansion. There were no large tea houses or restaurants, but there was a tea shop at the entrance of an alley further away. Shao Qingyuan asked Shao when to pull the carriage away and sat down in the shop. Gu Yundong followed Madame Gu through the door and quietly looked up to assess the scenery in the Marquis mansion. As expected of the once prosperous Marquis Huayin's mansion, The mansion was even larger than the one the emperor had bestowed to Qingyuan. Even though the current Marquis mansion was far inferior to the past, the scenery was still spectacular. The servant led them through the weeping flower door. Immediately, a person welcomed them with a smile. "Mrs. Qin, you're finally here. I was just saying that I should take a look at the door. Come. This way." As she spoke, she looked down at Qin Anning and said, "You must be Anning. You're so pretty and smart." Anning obediently paid her respects. Only then did Yundong know that this was the wife of the heir of Marquis Huayin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1375. Yundong is inconspicuous. The heir's wife smiled and stood up. She looked at Yundong with a puzzled expression. This is my niece. Her husband's surname is Shao. She heard that the plum blossoms in the Marquis mansion are a scene in our capital and insisted on coming over to take a look. I brought her here to meet her. I hope you won't take offense." Although Madame Gu was only a few years older than Yundong, Qin Anning addressed Yundong as elder sister, and Yunshu was Qin Wenzheng's disciple, so the seniority could only be calculated like this. "Of course I welcome you. I like people. My husband's surname is Shao. Who knows, we might have been a family 500 years ago." Yundong pursed her lips and smiled meaningfully. Wasn't that so? She had come exactly because they might be a family. She followed suit and bowed. Then, the heir's wife led them inside. Before they got close, Yundong saw a rose-red scenery in the distance. It was really beautiful, like a paradise. It was indeed a scene in the capital. The plum blossom forest in the Marquis Huayin's mansion was indeed beautiful. Yundong could not help but hold her breath. Even Madame Gu was a little surprised. Seeing them like this, the heiress couldn't help but purse her lips and smile. "Let's go. Standing far away now is the best. Being in the plum forest is another feeling." That's right. The few of them continued walking. Soon, they heard low voices and laughter. It seemed that there were already many madams and young ladies in the plum forest. When they saw Madame Gu coming over, a few people immediately stood up to welcome her. After all, he was a popular person in front of the emperor. Even though there were many aristocratic families with statuses higher than Qingyuan, they still smiled at Madame Gu and did not dare to underestimate her. Yundong held Qin Anning's hand and stood quietly at the side. She listened to Madame Gu introduce her and then nodded slightly in greeting. However, there were too many people. Not long after, the smile on Yundong's face could not hold on any longer. She was not the only one. Anning, who was beside her, could not help but shake Yundong's hand a few times. After finally walking to the pavilion and sitting down, the heir's wife finally said, "Anning, do you want to go over there to play? The little girls are all over there. Do you want to join in the fun?" Actually, Qin Anning did not want to go. She felt that they were not on the same side. However, she was even more unwilling to stay here. Her mother and these madams and young ladies would definitely talk for a long time. She was too bored. In any case, it was fine as long as she left this place. She did not have to play with those people. Therefore, she nodded and looked at Madame Gu. Madame Gu glanced at Yundong. She knew that she had a motive for entering the Marquis mansion. She could not sit here with her all the time. Hence, she said to Yundong, "Yundong, help me keep an eye on her. She'll listen to you. Don't let her go wild." "All right." Yundong nodded obediently and bade farewell to the other madams and ladies. She then held Qin Anning's hand and left. In the eyes of many madams, Yundong was not eye-catching. This married woman was probably just using Qingyuan to see the world. Without her around, these people felt more at ease. The maidservant quickly led Yundong and Qin Anning to the other side of the forest. When they were almost there, Yundong saw 7 or 8 young girls laughing and playing. They were probably all under the age of 10. Qin Anning was not willing to go over. She stood where she was and spoke to Yundong. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Ads by Pubrev, Chapter 1376. The apology isn't pure, however. The girls on the other side saw them. The people who were playing looked at each other. Not long after, two ladies of the same age as Anning ran over and stood in front of Qin Anning, inviting her. Anning, are you coming with us to play? Qin Anning did not. She did not like these people. They liked to compare at such a young age. It was either that their parents doted on them or that they had learned the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. They were praised and rewarded. They even asked her if she was very knowledgeable. After all, her father was a young genius and had caused a sensation back then. Later on, when they found out that Anning was not as good as them, they all looked at her in a strange way. It was as if she had embarrassed her father just because she was not a talented girl. Therefore, the last time they met, they parted on bad terms. Qin Anning did not expect them to come looking for her again. Frowning, she shook her head and said, I'm not going. I want to accompany my sister Gu. The two girls looked up at Gu Yundong curiously. Then they turned around to look at the other little girls and quickly said, Anning, come with us. It was our fault last time. When we went back, we were scolded by our parents. We know our mistake and won't do it again. Startled, Qin Anning's heart softened at the sight of how guilty they looked. The young lady was not a calculative person to begin with. Since they had already apologized, it would be rude of her to continue harping on it. She immediately pursed her lips and said softly, Then I'll forgive you. Then she looked up at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong laughed. You can go if you want. I'll be here admiring the flowers myself. Just call me if you need anything. Gu Yundong and Qin Anning had different thoughts. She knew that these people would condescend to come over and invite Anning because of her father. They said that they had been scolded by their parents last time. She guessed that their parents had asked them to build a good relationship with a young lady of the Qin family. The apology was not pure, and they did not really realize that they were wrong. But what did it matter? Anning was young. Deep down, she longed to play with other children. If she was restrained, Anning would never know the true thoughts of these young ladies in the capital. As Qin Wenzheng's daughter, the people she would come into contact with in the future were these people. She could not avoid them. Gu Yundong just watched from the side. Qin Anning quickly followed the two young ladies to their small circle. Gu Yundong had sharp eyes and noticed that there seemed to be a young lady in the center of them, who looked even younger than Anning. Thinking about it, this young lady was also a person of noble status. When Gu Yundong saw that they were speaking quickly, she separated her attention and sized up the people around her. Most of the people in this area were the maidservants of those girls. They basically stood far away. Some were alone, and some were gathered together to talk. The rest were the old maids in the Marquis mansion. Gu Yundong's target was these people. She saw an old woman picking up the plum blossom branches that had been torn off the ground. She was probably afraid that the young masters here would accidentally step on them and fall. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and quietly reached into her sleeve. She took out the silver bracelet from her space and put it on her wrist. This silver bracelet was specially made after she heard the news from Liangzi in the Wanqing prefecture. If the Marquis mansion was really Shao Qingyuan's house, then the elders of the Marquis mansion should have seen this bracelet. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1377. Gu Yundong's little trick. Gu Yundong wore the bracelet and specially walked to the old woman's side. She bent down and picked up one of the broken branches. The hand with the silver bracelet stretched out in front of the old man. For you. The old woman was stunned. She followed the bracelet's hand and looked up. Then she was shocked and said in fear, I don't dare to trouble madam. I can do it. Gu Yundong stretched the bracelet in front of her again. I'm fine. It's just a matter of convenience. Madam, just enjoy the flowers and tea. There are snacks in the pavilion over there. If you need anything else, feel free to tell me. Gu Yundong nodded. All right, I understand. Thank you. After saying that, she turned around and wanted to leave, but the bracelet slid down her wrist and fell to the ground. Seeing this, the old woman hurriedly picked up the bracelet and handed it to Gu Yundong. Madam, this is your bracelet. Gu Yundong turned around. Why did it fall off again? The buttons don't seem to be reliable anymore. I have to get someone to repair it later. As she spoke, she reached out to take the silver bracelet. The old woman took a few more glances at the bracelet. Yundong's eyes lit up and he asked, "Have you seen this bracelet before?" "Huh?" The old woman was stunned for a moment before shaking her head. "I've never seen it before. I just think this bracelet is quite unique." Yundong was speechless. The corners of her mouth twitched. It was indeed quite unique. Yundong was a little disappointed that this old woman had never seen it before. The old woman left quickly. Yundong put the silver bracelet back on her wrist. Unexpectedly, when she looked up, she saw a group of maidservants not far away pointing at her. Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at them coldly. Immediately, two maids did not dare to make sound, but two of them looked at Yundong provocatively. Yundong frowned when she suddenly heard Qin Anning's angry voice. "Sister Gu is not a servant of our family. Sister Gu is very capable. You're not allowed to speak ill of her." Yundong looked over and saw that Qin Anning's face had indeed turned red. She pushed one of the young ladies unhappily. That little girl was the one who seemed to have a noble status. As expected, as soon as Anning pushed, one of the maids who had provoked Yundong just now ran over quickly. "Princess." She hugged the little girl and reached out to push Anning. Yundong's pupils constricted. An adult's strength was different from a child's. Anning pushed the little girl and only made her retreat. This maidservant pushed Anning and was about to make her fall. Yundong suddenly rushed forward and quickly supported Anning before she reached the end. She frowned at the maidservant. However, the maidservant looked at her young master tightly. "Little princess, are you all right? Are you injured?" After saying that, she looked up at Anning. "What's wrong with you? If you want to talk, just talk. What right do you have to hit her? If our little princess is injured, can you bear the responsibility?" Anning pursed her lips. After a moment of silence, she said, "It's my fault for pushing her. I apologize, but it's also wrong for her to hurt someone with her words. She has to apologize too." The servant girl was so angry that she laughed. "Our little princess." Before she could finish speaking, the little girl in her arms stopped her. The young princess pushed the servant girl away and raised her chin arrogantly. "I didn't say anything wrong. Why should I apologize? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.